Hey and welcome, this is about to be a really long video where I go through every single movie and TV show and stuff that I watched in the year of 2022. So yeah, it's going to be really long, strap in for that. And I'm going to go through these in segments. So the first one's going to be 2022 movies that I've never seen in cinemas, and then 2022 movies that I've never seen at home, and then older movies that came out prior to this year that I watched at home, and then lastly, the rewatches. I also want to say that I did watch 500 movies this year. That was a goal that I was aiming to get to, and I officially watched 506 movies this year. Yay! I did it. So, with all that out of the way, let's get to it. So the first movie that I saw in cinemas this year was The Matrix Resurrections, which I remember being fine, absolutely fine. It kind of reminds me of one of those movies where like later in a few years I'm going to be like, oh yeah, they made another one of those at some point. Actually, we might already be there, to be honest. Then I saw Scream 5, which was just a really great Scream sequel. Just as great as pretty much every other Scream movie, and yeah, it was pretty awesome. Then I saw The Kingsman, which I actually hated quite a bit. It was all like historical and it bored me. I don't know. Then I saw Nightmare Alley, also okay. I don't know, it was like pretty, and I really liked the first half of it where they're at the carnival, but then they go to the big city and I'm like, I'm a bit less interested for whatever reason. Then, and this is in February, I saw Jackass Forever, and I kind of regretted that a little bit because, you know, did I really need to see this in cinemas? Probably not. And I don't know, some parts would have been funny or whatever, but it's not really my kind of humor. I'm not into the slapstick stuff that much. I'm not into the gross out stuff that much. It was just pretty immature. I don't know. Then I saw Death on the Nile, which again was another movie that was just fine, I guess. Like, I don't know. It was a bit predictable, I thought, more so than The Orient Express. And I don't know. I don't think it's as bad as other people make this movie out to be, though. Like, Death on the Nile kind of got memeified. It kind of got bullied as much as a movie can be bullied. And I don't really get that. I think it was fine. I don't know. Then I saw Wormwood Apocalypse, which is a great little Australian zombie movie, and I absolutely loved that. Not afraid to get stupid. Huge recommend from me. Then I saw Uncharted. And I'm feeling a bit repetitive because guess what? This movie was fine. Maybe a little worse than that because I do not like the casting of either Nathan Drake or Sully. I think that they're both wrong. If anything, Mark Wahlberg should have been Nathan Drake. Anyway, who cares? Next I saw The Batman, which is an ultimate instant classic. In my mind, this is a great comic book superhero movie that I'm going to be rewatching, and we're all going to be pretty much talking about in years to come in terms of being up there with The Dark Knight. I think so. I think it's comparable, and honestly, I probably like The Batman more than The Dark Knight. I think The Dark Knight is objectively a better movie, and Heath Ledger is better than anything in any of these movies ever as the Joker, but The Batman as a film, it's more entertaining to me than The Dark Knight. Is that crazy? Maybe. Then I saw X, which is one of the best movies of the year. Then I saw Dog, which is this really weird movie about Channing Tatum, and he's like a soldier and he has to transport this dog with PTSD across the country. When I say that country, of course, I mean the USA. People always say that country, assuming that you know which country they're talking about. I don't do that because I'm Australian. Anyway, he has to transport this dog across America, and it's just like this weird road trip movie, but like it really clashes with tones because sometimes it feels like it's taking itself super seriously, and it's about the trauma of soldiers and the military and stuff, and sometimes it's about the importance of the military and how they find family there, and then sometimes it's like this buddy comedy with a dog, and then sometimes at one point it's like almost a slasher movie where there's a guy with an axe or something and he's sneaking through a house not trying to get killed, and there's just so much going on in this movie. It's really strange to me. It also feels a bit like military propaganda to me, personally. I came out of this movie and I'm like, maybe I should join the US military, because that's just how susceptible I am, I suppose. Obviously, I'm joking. I didn't really think that, but Dog felt a little bit like it was really trying to get me to think about things a certain way, in a bit of a weird way to me. Anyway, then I saw The Lost City, which is kind of a fun little comedy movie, again with Channing Tatum. He had a hell of a march, I guess. And yeah, this was alright. Daniel Radcliffe was probably the best part of it. Then I saw Fantastic Beasts 3, which is a movie that nobody remembers at all. I like the Fantastic Beasts movies, alright. Crimes of Grindelwald kind of fell through. Again, worse than the second. First was easily the best one. I don't mind these movies. They don't touch Harry Potter, but I wish they were better. I'm kind of like, I'm for them. I'm kind of like, yeah, let's get into this. Let's continue this universe. universe. It's fun. And then they're not as good as I want them to be. I don't think they're as bad as everybody makes them out to be, but I don't know. And apparently now it might be dead. I don't think they're making 4 and 5 now, so oh well. Then I saw Ambulance, which is probably the best Michael Bay movie, maybe? I think so. This is a movie about these robbers, these bank robbers who are getting away in an ambulance from the cops. The whole movie is just the car chase, basically, and it's like this tense thrill ride throughout. And it's really good, and it's kind of about like the moral dilemmas of the main characters and stuff. I don't know, there's a bit more to it. There's some more layers in this film that you might expect from a Michael Bay movie, but overall it is pretty dumb and actiony and stuff. Then I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once, which is the movie that nobody would shut up about this year. Yes, it's fantastic. I can't deny that in any way. I do think that it's a little bit not as original as people make it out to be. I think it's a fantastic film, but it does take from certain places, you know what I mean? But all in all, who cares in the end? Because this movie is hilarious and like it's stupid, but it really, really packs a punch with the emotion as well. Like you're gonna sit there crying at rocks, talking to each other through subtitles. It's insane how they get you to care about the dumbest shit in this movie. It's really impressive to me. And I don't know, it's also just a really cool, and I will say it's a creative film, even if I don't think it's particularly original in every single way. Does that make any sense? There's a difference between creativity and originality, I think. Then I saw The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, which is that movie about Nicolas Cage making best friends with like a drug lord guy. And it's just a really weirdly wholesome film where they are just BFFs forever, and it's just kind of beautiful and also hilarious. I really enjoyed that movie. Then, and now we're up to May, I saw Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which is a pretty great one. You know, it's one of the better movies of Phase 4 in Marvel, which hasn't really been that strong if you ask me. It's kind of been a shitty little run recently. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness kind of stands up on top of that stuff, just behind No Way Home, of course, which is easily the best one of this phase. But, you know, Doctor Strange had some horror elements in there, and it was good. It was good. I wasn't crazy about it, but it was good. Then I saw Firestarter, which is that movie with Zac Efron. It's based on a Stephen King book about a little girl who can, make fire with her hands. What's that called? I forgot what that's called. It doesn't matter. She's like a little X-Men, and this movie is like X-Men Light, to be honest, because it's very much like that. It's about like, an evil government body is coming after this little girl with powers. They have to get away from them and everything. It very much felt like it could have been part of the X-Men universe. And I actually didn't mind this movie, apart from this one scene where they violently kill a cat, which I did not appreciate at all. But apart from that, I actually enjoyed this movie alright. I don't think it was like the best movie of the year, not even close, but I thought it was pretty good, and a lot of people really shit on this one or didn't pay attention to it at all. I don't know. Then next up, I saw Last Seen Alive, which is a Gerard Butler movie about he's trying to find his wife. His wife went missing, and it wasn't very good. This is not a great film, but it did intrigue me enough to at least want to find out what happened to his stupid wife. And then it turns into this action movie where he's shooting drug dealers and stuff at the end. It's dumb. Don't worry about it. Then I saw Men. Men is easily the most interesting movie that I saw this year. It's not my favorite movie, but it has something to say. It clearly has some commentary going on here, some socially relevant stuff. And I think that it's a movie that a lot of people misjudge. I think it's a movie that a lot of people don't quite understand, maybe, including myself in some ways. I'm sure there are elements to it that I didn't understand myself, but overall, I thought The Men was pretty fantastic. And I don't know if that's a hot take or not. It is really 50-50 with that movie. You're either gonna love it or hate it. There's really no just feeling fine about Men. Then I saw Lightyear, which is a movie that you and I think everybody would feel just fine about. It's basically like just this Star Wars adventure romp type of movie. There's really not much more to it in terms of like the Pixar emotion, that kind of trademark thing that they have there where it gets you to really care. It doesn't really have that. It's more of just a fun movie, but like for what it is, I thought it was pretty well done. Then I saw Jurassic World Dominion, which, speaking of hot takes, I like this movie a lot. Apparently nobody else feels the same way. Nobody else in the world, apart from me, likes this movie, but I liked it quite a bit. I saw this with my parents, and it was just like this nice day. I saw it with my parents, and we saw some dinosaurs and shit. I don't know. I think people take these big franchises too seriously sometimes, and they expect something that these movies are never gonna be. They love the first one through nostalgia, right? And look, the first one is objectively a good movie, right? But I think that people hold it so highly, so perfectly, because they've always loved it. And then they expect these new ones to be like, to hold up in their hearts as highly, as great, as fantastic. And when it doesn't, and when it's just maybe okay, or even just good, it enrages them. I think that's what happens with the Jurassic World franchise, to be honest. And because I don't have that much attachment to Jurassic Park, really, I'm not really that big of a fan of it personally. I'm able to have fun with the Jurassic World movies, and I like all of them. I even like whatever it's called, the second one, the Kingdom one. What's it called? I've got it here somewhere. Fallen Kingdom. I even like that movie. It's like this weird, almost horror movie where they're just in a mansion with dinosaurs and shit. I like that movie. Anyway, next up I saw The Black Phone, which is a very simplistic but very well done, solid horror movie that I was quite the fan of. And I got to see this one at like this special preview screening where press was and stuff. There were people in suits and stuff. I felt so out of place. Not that I'm a big deal. My wife got us in there. And yeah, great movie. Don't really have any complaints about it. The Grabber is honestly instantly iconic. I think that is a fantastic villain. I hope that we somehow see more of this world, but I'm not sure that we're going to. Anyway, next up I saw Elvis. I also saw this one with my parents. This is super long, super weird, but actually really interesting. I didn't really know anything about Elvis, and I didn't really know many of his songs. And I was surprised to find out how many I did know, actually, when hearing them. And I didn't know that I knew them. But yeah, this movie was like pretty interesting to me. I thought like, especially there were many of the scenes in this film where he's like, shaking his body and dancing, and all the women find him sexy and stuff. And I'm like, really? Really? That? But then like thinking about it, it's like, yeah, they didn't see that shit back then. And this was somebody who was doing something wildly different. And he was kind of rebelling against what everybody else was doing. And I don't know, it was just kind of cool to see in that way. I'm completely removed from the context of really being a huge fan of Elvis. So seeing it through my eyes, I think that it was kind of interesting. I learned quite a bit about it, even if it's not the most accurate film about him. I'm sure it's not. But it is a very strange movie as well, especially with the whole Tom Hanks kind of structure of the film. It's kind of told from his point of view as like this sleazy manager dude. And it was interesting. It's not how I would have told the story, but who the fuck am I? I don't know shit about Elvis, so I don't know. Good on the director. What's his name? Fuck. The dude that made Australia and stuff. It doesn't matter. Who cares? Then I saw Thor, Love and Thunder, which I thought was atrocious. Probably the worst movie of the year. This movie makes me want to vomit. I strongly hate this movie. It tries so hard to be funny. It tries way too hard in just about every single way. It does not pack the emotion that it needs to. And it's just not interesting. And then spoiler alert, because anybody who cares about it at this point has seen it, right? Alright, fine. I won't say everything, but they kill off a character at the end, right? And then that character shows up already in the post-credits scene. And it's like, alright, so there's no stakes. Fantastic. If anybody dies in the MCU now, I guess nobody really dies. They can just come back, they're in heaven or whatever, Valhalla. So it's like, who cares anymore? I don't know, the MCU is just getting worse and worse in terms of this, and it's kind of starting to piss me off a little bit, to be honest, because I'm such a huge fan of it, at least I used to be, and it's really making me fall out of love with it. Movies like Thor, Love and Thunder are really not what the MCU should be, if you ask me. But I'm also not a huge fan of Taika Waititi, to be honest, so I don't know, take that how you will as well, because I know there are a lot of die-hard fans of this guy. He doesn't really work for me. I always think the humor feels like it's trying to be forced. It's always like, oh, I'm so quirky, I'm so awkward, and it's like, you can feel them trying. Does that make any sense? I also don't like what we do in the shadows either for that reason. It's like, he's standing here and he looks a little awkward. It's like, I can see you acting. I don't know, there's something about it that just doesn't work for me. But I'm in the minority there, I'll tell you that much. Then I saw Where the Crawdads Sing, which is another movie that kind of got made fun of. People weren't really into this one, and I don't really get it. I thought it was pretty fantastic, to be honest. I don't think it was as great as my whole family seems to think it is, because after seeing this, I talked about this movie with my family. They're obsessed with this movie. I don't really get that, but But no, I think this is a pretty solid movie, and I think the whole backstory behind it and the ending of what happens, which I won't spoil here, is very interesting. Look that shit up if you are interested, because some things are based on a real thing that happened, and it's actually a really weird, fucked up story. Yeah, I shouldn't get into it here. We don't have time, but I thought this movie was pretty good, to be honest. It's all about how we treat poor people, basically, and how this woman is just like, I don't know, not treated fairly for being born in the circumstances that she was, and I think it's a pretty good movie. Then I saw Bullet Train, which is one of my absolute favorite movies of the year. It is just a dumb action movie, but it does it so well. It is so fast paced and fun, and it just does not slow down for a second. There are so many great characters in here as well. There's a lot to like in Bullet Train, if you ask me, and it's clever too. It's not just a movie that is just there to, I don't know, shoot people in the face and see people getting punched and stuff. There is a lot of humor in here. There's a lot of great writing. It is based on a book, which I was very surprised to find out. But yeah, you can kind of see it there. There's a lot of like intelligence behind Bullet Train where you might not expect it. Then I saw Nope, which is a movie that actually really highly disappointed me, and I am in the minority there as well. Jordan Peele is easily one of my favorite directors of all time. I say that just based on Get Out and Us. With those two movies, that's enough to solidify him into that status for me. Those are perfect films. Absolutely perfect, flawless films. I love them so much. And I'm talking about Us too. A lot of people don't like Us as much as I do. I think Us and Get Out are pretty much on par with each other as flawless, perfect films. But Nope is a movie that I just felt like showed its cards in the trailer and just didn't really have any surprises left. I think that it's not a bad film. It's a good film, but it's not that mind-blowing, and it's really not anywhere near as good as Get Out or Us, if you ask me. It's a lot more simple, it's a bit more of a popcorn flick, and it doesn't have that social commentary in there quite as much, at least. I think that this movie should have been about the monkey scene. If you've seen the movie, you know what I'm talking about. The monkey scene, the flashback scene with the monkey, is the best part of the movie. I would have absolutely loved a 2-hour film about that story and Stephen Ewan's character. That would have been absolutely my thing. Nope, as it plays out though, it's just a movie that, in the end, it wasn't for me, which is super disappointing. Then I saw The Invitation, which is a movie about, do I say it? I won't say it. It's a movie about a family with a dark past. A woman who doesn't know that she had this family previously is going to visit them in their fancy mansion. And then she finds out that they are deadly in some way. And even though it seems really obvious in this gothic horror movie where that is leading, I won't say what it is here, but this is a fun, cheesy horror movie that most people hate, but I liked. Then in September now, I saw Orphan First Kill, which is a fantastic little prequel to the first Orphan film, where a little girl orphan kills people. That's all I'll say. Then there's Bodies, 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 which is a kind of anti-slasher movie about a group of paranoid idiots who are all these just rich punk kids trying to avoid getting killed in their rich ass mansion. And it's very funny and it's very good. I like it. Then I saw Fall, which is that movie where the girls are gonna fall off the tall tower, and it's really like stomach churning, and it's like, I don't want to fall. Fall is effective in that way. And then I saw Smile, which I think is one of the best horror movies that came out this year. I think it's the scariest movie that came out this year, if you ask me. Smile is definitely the scariest movie that I saw this year. It is full of jump scares, but most of them are effective. They don't really do the cheap shit. I think that it's... I personally think it's done really well, and it's a clever film all about the trauma of the main character and the paranoia of her thinking that she's going absolutely mad when maybe she's not, maybe she is. We're not exactly sure yet. But I do think that there is this particular craft to doing jump scares well, and Smile does just that. I think it's a great film. Then I saw Don't Worry Darling, which I also think is a great film, and that's also putting me in the minority because a lot of people really didn't like this movie. I think maybe though that had more to do with the behind the scenes stuff with Olivia Wilde and Shia LaBeouf and Harry Styles, whatever the fuck happened. And the spitting on Chris Pine and all this shit that I don't really care about. It's celebrity gossip stuff that really has nothing to do with the movie itself. The movie itself, to me, in my opinion, is a really great little feminist film that's kind of like this horror thriller thing. Florence Pugh is great, and it's a good movie. I think it's a really good movie. I don't really get all the hate. Then I saw Halloween Ends, and speaking of hate, I hate Halloween Ends. I said Thor Love and Thunder is my worst movie. Maybe it's Halloween Ends. No, that's not true, because I didn't I didn't hate everything about Halloween Ends. The more frustrating part about this film is that I liked what it could have been, and it could have been good. It had elements in here that were good. I don't think the idea itself is that terrible. I just think it's a weird place to do it. This is a Halloween movie that doesn't focus on Michael Myers, which it's been done before. Number 3 season of The Witch is also not about Michael Myers. It's not that weird. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. But this was heavily promoted as the epic conclusion to a trilogy with Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. It was supposed to be about their final showdown, and it fucking wasn't. And I just can't really get past that. I can't really forgive it for that reason. If they just ended the fucking story how they wanted to end it, how I wanted it to end, if I'm being honest, and then brought Corey into the story for like a 4th one, a post-trilogy film, that would have been absolutely fine and interesting and original. It's just a weird fucking place to do what they did. That's all. I don't know. Then I saw The Stranger, which is a great little Australian film that everybody should see about a true life crime that, if you don't know the story behind it, will make the film even better. It'll make it confusing at first because you're not really sure where it's going, but once it clicks, it is really fascinating. And yeah, and some people had a problem with this movie because they thought it was being exploitive of certain victims that have to do with the story. I strongly disagree. Maybe it's not my place to say, but I thought that this was done really respectfully, and it showed the bad people in this film as absolute creeps who are irredeemable, who you want nothing to do with. And it has some fantastic acting in here too. Joel Edgerton is in it. Love that dude. And yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Then I saw Barbarian, which is another movie that kind of let me down personally. I just didn't think it was as mind-blowing as everybody was making it out to be before I went in to see it, because I didn't get to see it until a bit later because it didn't come out in Australia yet. Yeah, so I didn't see this until October, and after like a few months of hearing about being the best fucking thing, I was like, it's good. I don't know if it's like as good as everybody's saying, and it kind of let me down. But overall, it's a pretty great film anyway. Then I saw Terrified 2. Speaking of great films, Terrified 2 is maybe the definition of a sequel that is just like bounds and bounds and bounds and bounds better than the original. Like, I think that this is the best upgrade from original to sequel that there has ever been, maybe. In my opinion, anyway. Terrified 2 is not a film that's going to work for everyone. Probably not most people. It's probably going to be too brutal. It's probably going to be too saturated in dark humor for a lot of people. But for me, it really, really worked. I liked that there was actually a protagonist, a final girl in this film, rather than it just being about Art himself. He was more treated in the traditional way of being an antagonist than he was in the first one, where he was essentially the main character. There was too much of Art in the first one. He's used a little bit more sparingly in this sequel, and he is delightful. He is just so funny, but also like fucking terrifying as well, you know, as the title suggests. Then we're up to November, and I saw Sissy, which is a great little Australian slasher film. It's definitely very funny though. This is a movie that is very much like Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. If you've ever seen that film, highly recommend it. Then I saw Black Panther 2, which I didn't love as much as everybody else has been. I kind of feel the same way about Avatar 2, which I'm going to get to soon, where it's a very long 3-hour film that's technically good, but it just wasn't really my thing. I did think that the way that they handled Chadwick Boseman's death though was really so well done. Like, they were dealt such a shit hand and they got out of that like really impressively. And also, it's not a spoiler to say, right? Shuri being Black Panther, that's a great choice because she's probably my favorite character in this franchise, just the Black Panther films. So I was happy about that choice. Yeah, I didn't love this movie as much as a lot of other people did. Like, to defeat the villain at the end, they literally like put him in an oven. It's like, it's dumb. It's a little bit dumb for reasons like that. But overall, I do think it's a pretty good movie. Objectively, it's pretty great. I just found it a little bit boring, to be honest. Is that blasphemous to say? Maybe, but here we are. Then I saw On the Line, which is unfortunately a Mel Gibson movie who has kind of like been cancelled and stuff. I'm not a huge fan of that dude, but this film itself, I kind of am. For the most part, it kind of just seems like this generic thriller that's not that good, but it goes in directions that you're not going to expect, and by the end, it just surprised me so much that I kind of love it. I did not see where it was going, and I actually quite recommend this one for everybody to see, just to see where it goes. This is a movie about a radio host whose family gets like kidnapped. The guy calls him up live on the radio, instructing him to stay on the line, or else he's gonna like like kill his wife or whatever, and it goes on from there. And yeah, I thought it was pretty good. Then I saw The Menu, which is my favorite movie of the year, about a fancy restaurant that only the elite can go to. But things get a little bit darker than everybody thought that it was going to. Some people die and stuff like that. And it is glorious. I think that The Menu is also, much like Get Out and Us, a perfect film. Then I saw Glass Onion, which is about as good as Knives Out is. This is the sequel, if you didn't know that. It is a, what's his name? Matt LeBlanc, that's not his name. Benoit Blanc. Mystery. And yeah, it's pretty good. It's about rich douchebags being rich douchebags and murder mysteries and stuff like that. It's about what you're going to expect it to be, and Rian Johnson just does his thing once again. I know a lot of people don't like Rian Johnson because of The Last Jedi. They are objectively wrong because that's a fantastic film. It's Rise of Skywalker that fucked everything up by not going along with what The Last Jedi went along with, but that's another discussion. What I saw next was Bones and All, which I thought was a movie that was, weird and pretty good, but I do get a bit annoyed at the critics and stuff who are giving this one an absolute pass when really, if you look at it, bones and all, if you actually look at it under what is kind of on the surface as being this kind of pseudo horror movie, what this film really is a teenage romance movie, which isn't really a highly respected subgenre, and it kind of annoys me that when you just put the kind of horror elements on there and make it a little bit artsy-fartsy and stuff, it feels like it tricks the critics and they're like, oh, this is good. But really, this is Twilight, but a bit more violent. That's how I see this movie. And I liked it okay, but I'm baffled by how everybody else thinks that it's a pretty great film. The people who do anyway, because a lot of people think it sucks. I don't know. Next up, I saw She Said, which is a really just mature film that tells a very important story, but it's very documentarian. It's not a documentary. It is like a fictional film with acting, but it is a film that is very dry, very to the point, very fact-based. And I think it's important to see, and I think that it did it really well, but it just wasn't one of my favorites for that reason. It was a little dry, you know what I mean? And if you don't know, this is the movie that is essentially telling the story behind how they kind of caught and took down Harvey Weinstein and his whole fucking, exploits and stuff in Hollywood, which is obviously some fucked up stuff. And yeah, I think that it really treated that material in a really respectful way, and I highly appreciated this film, even if it wasn't one of my favorites of the year or anything. Then, one of my favorites of the year, I saw Violent Night. We're now up to December, almost done with the cinema films. Violent Night is a movie about Santa, and he just kills a bunch of people, and it's fun, and that's really all you need to know. Then I saw Avatar 2, which I hated. Avatar 2 is a film that I do not understand all the praise for. It's stupid. For one, the story is just not good. It's just not good. And everybody who likes this movie says, yeah, the story isn't good, but the visuals, blah, woo, visuals. And I'm just like, yeah, I need more than that, man. And in saying that, I don't think the visuals are that fucking good. I won't say that the visuals are bad. They aren't bad. They're great even. But so are so many other films' visuals. I don't think that Avatar 2's visuals is any better than any of the Marvel movies or anything like that. It's just another CGI blockbuster looking film, and I don't really get all the praise for the visuals. I think it's people getting tricked by the 3D. But I was told by a friend, Tristan at the Martial Arts Film Freak YouTube channel, he said that if you have your glasses on and also your 3D glasses, that might affect how much you can see the 3D. And I did that. I need my glasses. So maybe I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, and I just didn't actually see what everybody else was saying. That's a possibility. But even if I did, I still think I would feel the same way. Alright, that's all for the in-cinema films. Now we're going to talk about the 2022 films that I saw at home. Okay, so the first 2020 movie that I watched at home this year, and shut up, it counts, it's the Harry Potter 20th anniversary reunion special thing. And it was, I don't know, it was what it was. If you're a fan of Harry Potter, it was interesting. It wasn't that informative. It kind of just kept telling you the same things, beating you over the head, being like, Harry Potter is so magical, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, yeah, I know, shut up. But I don't know, as a Harry Potter fan, I liked it. Then I watched The Fallout, which was, I thought at the time, time going to be one of my favorite movies of the year. It did get knocked out because there was a bunch more stuff that came out this year that I thought was pretty fantastic and a bit better than the Fallout, including Luckiest Girl Alive, which I thought was very similar to the Fallout, but just a lot better. But overall, I can't really take away from the Fallout. I do think it's a pretty great movie. If you don't know what it is, it's basically about a school shooting trauma, and it has Jenna Ortega in it, who is Wednesday. I know everybody loves Wednesday, so maybe check it out if you haven't heard of it. Then we're up to February already. I watched Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is a movie that probably kills the whole legacy of the fantastic franchise that is Texas Chainsaw Massacre, but I don't really give a shit. I thought this was a dumb fun slasher movie. I had fun with it. And also, like, more than half of the Chainsaw Massacre movies are bad anyway, so who really cares at this point? Next up, I saw Spencer, which is a movie about the royal family and all that stuff. It's not like super my thing, but it was interesting. Then I watched The Tinder Swindler. The Tinder Swindler. That's hard to say. I watched this with my parents for some reason, and it was just like, I don't know, it was really fascinating to see where the rabbit hole took you with this scam artist guy. I actually really liked this movie. I don't know if that's like looked down upon. I don't think it's like hugely respected. It's kind of trashy, but I liked it. Then I watched West Side Story, which I hated. I think this is technically a 2021 movie, but we didn't get it until 2022, so fuck off. West Side Story, to me, was a waste of time, personally. I mentioned before, I don't like Jurassic Park that much. I don't like Steven Spielberg that much. Do you think I'm an idiot now? Well, keep watching. Then I watched Fresh, and I rewatched Fresh later on as well. Fresh is a movie that is a rom-com. I'll just say that. Fresh is a great rom-com film that goes in different directions than you might be expecting if you're not that observant to the rating or the poster or the advertising or the genres listed on Disney Plus or Hulu if you're in America or any of that stuff. It's a little obvious where it's leading, but if you don't pay attention to that stuff, it may surprise you, and I think it's done really well. Then I watched No Exit. This is a movie that was on our Disney Plus. I think it was on your guys' Hulu in America. And it's basically about these people who get snowed in, and it's meant to be like this murder mystery slasher kind of movie. It's really actually pretty boring. And something else that I noticed, and something that I have noticed going on with these films that are on Disney Plus and are like those Hulu original type of movies, they are so fucking dim for some reason. I'm jumping ahead, but just the other night I watched Home Sweet Home Alone, whatever that's called, the one that came out last year, the Home Alone reboot. And it's so dim. What's up with that? The Disney Plus movies are really dim for some reason. Anyway, who cares? Then I watched Turning Red, which is another Disney Plus movie, and I don't remember that being really dim, but whatever. Turning Red is my second favorite movie of the year, among a bunch of other horror movies and everything. Turning Red held up there as absolutely just one of the best to me. It is absolutely adorable and hilarious. I've seen it twice. I will probably see it many more times. Mei Mei, the character, the little girl who turns into a panda, is like this little confident little just annoying brat. But you feel bad for her when she's turning into the panda and like she's crying and stuff, and it's like, oh god, yeah, it's a shitty situation, I suppose. I don't know, this movie, like, it's so much better than you're thinking it's gonna be. You see the poster and you're like, oh god, that's clearly just for kids. That's like Illumination level shit. This is like gonna be like a Minions movie or something, isn't it? But no, it's so much more heartfelt than that. I do think that a lot of people are gonna be annoyed by this movie watching it because, you know, it's about, you know, little girls and they are inherently annoying. But I kind of appreciated that they portrayed little girls in a realistic way, and Mei Mei to me is a great protagonist. I think it's a great film. This movie kind of got dragged this year by male critics, adult critics, who are like, I don't relate to this movie. For some reason, this is the movie they targeted. And it's like, just because you're not, you know, a 13-year-old Asian girl in Canada doesn't mean that, like that's not the part that you're supposed to relate to. Like, whoever said that, the critic that said that, I remember it got like a lot of traction in the middle of the year. I was reading articles and stuff about this, but whoever wrote that watches movies wrong. It's like, that's not the part you relate to. The part you relate to is like your relationship with your mother, your growing up, not wanting to, not being ready to grow up, that kind of stuff. Not necessarily like strictly being a 13-year-old Asian girl. So that person is watching movies wrong. I don't know, just a little rant for you right there. Anyway, next up I watched The Adam Project, which is just like this fun movie that really you don't have to take too seriously, but I liked it a surprising amount, and it's honestly one of my favorites of the year. Ryan Reynolds. I like him. What can I say? I've got a Deadpool tattoo. Although I got this before Ryan Reynolds was Deadpool, thank you. Well, not before he was Deadpool in Wolverine Origins, but that doesn't fucking count. Anyway, then I watched Windfall, which I've already forgotten. Not really. It has Jesse Plemons in it, and it is basically about this guy who is trying to hold rich people hostage for some money, but it's a bit more awkward than that. And it's kind of like full of deadpan humor and stuff, and I liked it okay, but it's not that memorable. Then I watched The Bunker Game, which I have completely forgotten about. This one I really have forgotten about. This was like this horror movie where they're in like this World War II bomb shelter place, and it's really boring. Don't worry about it. Then I watched Choose or Die, which is this horror movie where these people get like stuck in like this virtual game, and they have to do what it says or they die or whatever. They have to choose things, and it's also pretty dumb, not a great movie. Then I watched The Eyes of Tammy Faye, and I only watched this movie because of how great I heard it was. And I don't know, it wasn't really for me, but like it wasn't bad, it just wasn't for me. Then I watched, and this counts as a movie, this is gonna get a bit controversial, but I count these as movies. I watched the stand-up special, Ronnie Chiang, called Speak Easy on Netflix. Funny! And it counts as a movie, shut up. Then I watched Taylor Tomlinson, Look at You. Also a stand-up special. Funny! Counts as a movie. Shut the fuck up. Then I watched Metal Lords, which is a movie about these teenagers wanting to start a metal band in their high school and stuff. One of the kids, I believe he was the drummer, maybe, or maybe he was the guitarist. I don't remember. But the kid who's not the main character, such a douchebag, almost ruined the movie because he was such a douchebag. Oh my god. But it was a cute movie overall. Then I watched Our Father, which is a movie about a really fucked up guy who did some things that he shouldn't have. Basically, he was one of those doctors that has to do with pregnancies and stuff, and he did some things without women's permission, and it resulted in many children being born, and they are now adults. And yeah, it's pretty disturbing and very fascinating to watch these adults deal with the very specific predicament they find themselves in. Yeah. Weird, real situation that actually happened. It's pretty icky. Then there was Licorice Pizza, which I'm counting as a 2022 movie because we didn't get it until the 26th of December. And that's 2021, and that's close enough to this year, if you ask me. If you ask me, I'm counting it. I'm sorry. Licorice Pizza is a movie that was very much not for me, and I was actually pretty disappointed because I watched a bunch of Paul Thomas Anderson movies this year, and I've actually become quite the fan of him, but this movie was kind of nonsense. I feel the same way about Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, though, and Tarantino's work. I love pretty much all of his other movies, except for Death Proof and... is that the only one I don't like? I'm not a huge fan of Jackie Brown either, but apart from that, I love Tarantino. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, though, and Licorice Pizza, these are just movies that are like these weird era nostalgia movies that just weren't really for me. Then I watched King Richard, which again, much like the other one, it's close enough to 2022. We didn't get it till late December in 2021. It counts for me, I'm sorry. Or maybe we didn't even get it until 2022. I don't know. Anyway, this is the movie about the Williams tennis player sisters, and it's interesting. I didn't know a bunch about their story. I didn't know that the other one, not Serena Venus, was actually originally the one who was like the better player originally, and then Serena kind of overtook her later on in life. That was interesting to find out. I didn't need to watch a whole movie to find that out, I suppose. It would have just taken some simple research, but I didn't care about that very much. But watching the movie, I did care about it. I thought it was also interesting seeing their dad kind of be this obsessive guy who did, in my opinion, push them too hard and was too obsessive and he was a bit of a dick, right? He was a bit of a dick, but just because he happened to be right and they did turn into successful tennis players, it kind of almost justifies how much of a dick he was, which is icky. It's kind of an interesting, weird moral dilemma there, because I think he did push them too hard, but in the end, he was right. He got them there. Did they need that? Or did they already have that talent in them to begin with? Or did it take work on their part and they were just trying really hard and they improved and they became great tennis players? You know, where did their greatness come from? That's what this movie is about. And yeah, I really loved it for that reason. Then I watched The Sadness, which is a movie that I expected to really like. I heard about how it's the most depraved movie ever, blah, blah, blah. And it kind of was a little bit, but like not in the way that I like, I suppose. I thought this movie went a little bit too far and went a little too hard into just trying to be disgusting. And it didn't have a whole load of other kind of substance in there. It was just trying to be disgusting. It was just trying to be violent and horrible. And it was, but it didn't hold its cards back in any way whatsoever. It just was what it was. We saw everything on screen. It didn't hold back. And for that reason, I actually thought it was less effective than it could have been if it kind of did hold back a little bit. The Sadness for me was a movie that just tried too hard to be really edgy. And it wasn't as shocking to me as I think it wanted to be. I think that it's a movie that would shock a lot of people who don't watch a lot of horror movies. But to me, who has, been around the block, have seen a bunch of stuff, The Sadness was just like a movie that was trying too hard. That's all. Then I saw Emergency, which is absolutely one of my favorite movies of the year. It is about these 2 or 3 actually black teenagers who find a unconscious white girl in their apartment, and basically they want to get rid of her safely. She's been passed out drunk, somehow ended up in their house, and basically they assume that this is going to look really bad on our part. People are going to assume that we have done things to her, which we didn't. People are going to assume that, this is our doing. And it wasn't. And basically the movie is about them trying to transport this poor girl safely in a respectful way, but also while trying to regain, their innocence and try and not look like they are the perpetrators of this crime that has happened. And it's really interesting in that way. And it's also really funny and lighthearted in moments as well. And all about friendship and stuff. It's a really impressive movie to me. I liked it a lot. I raved the fuck out of it when I watched it earlier this year in June, but not a lot of people saw it, unfortunately. Then I saw See For Me, which is a movie about a blind girl who is house sitting for somebody, and then people like break in and everything, but she uses this app called See For Me, where a person is seeing everything that she is seeing and telling her how to get out safely, and it's just like this tense thriller, and it's pretty good. It's not as good as I thought it would be, to be honest, but it is pretty good. Then I watched Boiling Point, which is another flawless film like Get Out and Us. Another flawless film, except for the very ending, actually. Anyway, Boiling Point is a film that is about these chefs. It's about a kitchen, basically. And it's all taken in literally one shot. It took them 4 tries to get it absolutely perfect, apparently. And yeah, you can just tell, as the camera weaves in and out through this kitchen, just how tense everything is. It is already a tense film about real people, with real problems, but it's also a very tense shoot for the actors. And so everything is really coming to a boiling point in this film on the most stressful day of the year. I believe it's Christmas Eve or something, for this restaurant. Basically, it just shows all of the stresses that come with a job like this, working in a kitchen. And it's a very human film, showing that everybody involved has their own struggles, but has to kind of keep moving on for the sake of their jobs, and how, that can be very difficult. I very much sympathize with a lot of these characters here, and it's just done in such an impressive way in this one take throughout the entire film. It's astronomically impressive how they pull this off. And I love this movie. I've watched it twice now, and I think it is, I want everybody to watch Boiling Point, please. You don't have to care about kitchens to like this movie. I don't give a fuck about cooking, and I think that this is a flawless film. I really, really do. Except for the ending, which gets a little bit too dramatic for my taste. It turns things into something that I don't think the film ever was. Most of this film is about, it's very grounded and small scale. It is about very small, specific stories and how people struggle in these ways. And then the end of the movie, it's everything's very dramatic. Everything, it comes to a boiling point. And I suppose it's in the title, but to me, it felt like it took things a little bit too far in the dramatic way. To me, if you've seen the movie, you probably know what I'm talking about. But that's just my feelings. Next up, I saw Hustle, which is that Adam Sandler movie where he's a basketball coach, and it's fine, I don't know. Then I saw The Found Footage Phenomenon, which is a documentary about found footage films, and it was okay, but most of this movie was just a bunch of people sitting in front of a camera being like, the found footage genre, it was really, really important, and the Blair Witch Project started it all, and And what's great about found footage movies is it puts you in the shoes of the main characters. And that's why it's effective. And basically it's just a documentary of a bunch of people saying those three things over and over and over and over again. They're just saying, oh yeah, found footage movies are really effective because it shows you from the perspective of the main character. It really puts you in that situation. It's scary because of that. And then a bunch of other people going on about how the Blair Witch Project was so influential to the genre and how big and crazy the found footage subgenre has become in horror. And it's just that over and over and over again. And it's like, I know, stop telling me what a found footage movie is. If I'm watching this movie on Shudder, everybody who has Shudder knows what a found footage movie is. Like it's you don't just stumble across Shudder accidentally. We know what a found footage movie is. This movie's so redundant and it annoys the fuck out of me. Now we're up to July, halfway through the year. I watched The Man from Toronto, which is that movie with Woody Harrelson and Kevin Hart, and they are like spies or whatever, and it's fine. Then I watched We're All Going to the World's Fair, which is a really strange movie about internet interactivity and how certain people in your life can become important online, even though you never meet them. I have many online friends like that, and how quickly they can vanish from your life as well, and how scary that can be. This is a movie that's really all about codependency and loneliness, and it's all about this teenager who's basically getting led into this online cult, basically, and what she's willing to do to just feel like she fits in somewhere. And I found that really fascinating. Then I watched I Want You Back, which is a movie about people who break up and then try and help each other get their exes back, and then, oh, blah, they fall in love. Yeah. I don't know. It's a rom-com. It's got Charlie Day in it. That's why I watched it. And yeah, it was alright. Then I watched 13 Lives, which is the true story behind the boys who got stuck in the cave in Thailand a few years back. There's a documentary about it, which I haven't seen, but I watched 13 Lives because it had Viggo Mortensen in it and a few other good actors and stuff. I'm like, hey, that could be good. And I actually found this movie surprisingly boring. I wasn't a huge fan of this one, to be honest. But, you know, it was alright. Then I watched Prey, the prequel to Predator. And I wasn't as big on this as everybody else was. I thought it was done well. I liked how it was kind of set in the era that it was. It was interesting watching these, you know, tribes people fight this advanced technology and stuff. And that was cool. I thought the protagonist was really great. How she, like, you know, used her wits to beat the Predator rather than just her strength and whatever. And I did like that it was a film all about how she just wanted to prove herself. And I liked that aspect, but I don't know. I'm just not that huge a fan of the Predator movies that much, I suppose. And yeah, I liked it, but I didn't love it as much as everybody else. Then I watched The Grey Man, which is that movie with Ryan Gosling in it and Chris Evans and their spies and whatever, and it was okay. Then I watched Not Okay, and that's a fascinating movie about how this girl basically finds herself in this lie online where she has gone viral saying that she has been in Paris, which then gets a terrorist attack on it, and then she has to kind of fake her way through being a victim of a terrorist attack just to, you know, save face. And basically it's about just how deep into the rabbit hole of lies that she is willing to go to look good online, and basically it's all about the morals behind that choice. And like, it's bad. What she does is bad, but you kind of feel bad for her too, because I don't know, she didn't know this was going to happen. It's like, yeah, I don't know. Once she starts going down this rabbit hole, it's hard to get out of it. And yeah, it was interesting watching that play out and what she learns from that too. I thought that this was kind of an important movie, and it commentated on social media and how we all want to just look good to other people, how we all want to be the best, I suppose. I thought it was good. Then I watched Rise of the Ninja Turtles, the movie of that. I think it's a show or something. I don't know. It's a cartoon, and you're supposed to have seen things that came out before this, and I didn't. And I jumped in, and I don't know. It was fine. It was a Ninja Turtles movie, I suppose. Then I watched Me Time, which is that Mark Wahlberg and again Kevin Hart comedy where they are on the poster. There's a big tortoise thing in the middle, and this is a movie that was okay. Then I watched TikTok Boom, which is a documentary about TikTok and how that came big and everything. Was not that informative, but it was kind of interesting to watch something based on TikTok, which is, you know, still quite new, I suppose, as a kind of older person in Gen Z or millennial, whatever the fuck I am. You know, I'm not on TikTok. I don't know about it all that much. I know a bit about it, but it was interesting. Then I watched Don't Make Me Go, which is a movie about road tripping. It's like a cancer road trip movie with John Cho in it. He's going with his daughter, and it's it's just like this cute, wholesome film, and I like it a lot. Then there is Speak No Evil. I hated Speak No Evil very much. Along with Thor, Love and Thunder, and whatever else I said I hated, I also hated Speak No Evil. It felt like such a pointless movie, and it felt like the characters in it were such idiots. They didn't fight back in the situation they found themselves in. They didn't argue back. They wanted to keep polite, and I get that there was a social commentary there, but they just didn't even fucking try to get themselves out of the situation in any way. It was endlessly frustrating, this movie. Then I watched Trainwreck Woodstock 99. Shut up, this is a movie, by the way. It's technically 3 episodes, but I don't really care. This is about the train wreck that was Woodstock 99, and it was interesting. Then I watched I Came By, which is about a graffiti artist who finds himself graffitiing, tagging the wrong house. Basically, he gets himself stuck in this bad situation, and I liked it. Then I watched Hellraiser 2022. Hated it. I thought this was a really boring movie. Then I watched Werewolf by Night, the little Marvel special that came out. I also thought this was really boring. I didn't like it. Then I watched Day Shift, the Jamie Foxx vampire hunter movie, and it was about what you'd expect. You know, I don't know, he's a vampire hunter. It's kind of dumb, but it was alright. Then I watched VHS 99. Did not like this one either. Then My Best Friend's Exorcism. Man, I didn't have a great October here, did I? Because I didn't really like this movie either. Then I watched Luckiest Girl Alive, and thank God, because that was a 5-star film for me. I thought it was just a really well-told story, and I liked that one. Then I watched Deadstream, and here we go again with the redeeming October, the end of October here. Deadstream is a fantastic found footage film, which is a subgenre that, as mentioned in the found footage phenomenon part that I just said, I don't really like found footage movies, but Deadstream, probably the best one I've ever seen, to be honest. Then I watched The Immaculate Room, which is about these people who challenge themselves to stay in this completely empty, just white room for like 50 days or something, and they win a bunch of money, and it's just basically about how, you know, having nothing to do and boredom and all that stuff drives you crazy. And I like this movie alright. Then I watched Who Invited Them, which is about these people who show up at a party, they don't know who they are, the hosts of this party don't know who these two people are, and it basically just goes on from there, where you try and figure out what the hell is going on. Then I watched Intergalactic, which is this animated rom-com movie set in New York that's just really cute, and I liked it a lot. Basically, this is like Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse without the superhero stuff, because it looks very similar, like the animation style, and I like that. Then I watched The Good Nurse, which is about a serial killer nurse who takes people out by just like in a very indirect way, and that's how they keep getting away with it. And the thing that happens in this movie that I found really interesting is that this nurse does kill people, right? Like by giving them, I think they poke holes in their IV bags or something, and so air goes into their veins or some chemical goes into their veins or something, and it kills them, right? And what's interesting though is that because it's not provable, like because they're not exactly sure that that's what's happening, all of the hospitals don't really investigate. They don't want to get involved because they don't want to take the blame. And so basically this nurse just goes from hospital to hospital, getting hired by new hospitals because nothing has been reported, doing it over and over and over again. Then the hospital suspects and finds out and fires him, but don't report it, don't say anything, and then send him off to some other hospital where he continues this cycle. And it's all about trying to take this guy down. And that was really fascinating. There's also a documentary about it, but I haven't watched it. Then there is Disenchanted, which is the sequel to Enchanted, about the Disney princess, the animated Disney princess who comes into the real world. But this time, the real world kind of turns into a Disney princess world. And I thought that really defeated the point, got rid of all of the charm, because the whole thing for me, why I like the original film, is that the princess, what's her name? I don't remember her name, but the main princess in the film doesn't fit in the world. She's a fish out of water. That's where all the comedy comes from, because she acts like a stereotypical Disney princess, and everybody thinks she's weird. That's what's funny about it. In Disenchanted, everybody acts like a Disney princess, and it just, like, what's the point anymore? I might as well just be watching a Disney princess movie. You know what I mean? Then I watched The Weekend Away, which was like this mystery movie about a missing person. It was okay. Then I watched Samaritan, which is that Sylvester Stallone superhero movie. The most predictable movie I've ever seen, probably. Then I watched Senior Year, which is that movie with Rebel Wilson where she goes back to high school after being in a coma for like 20 years or whatever. So her brain is still like a 16-year-old, but her body is like a 34-year-old or 36-year-old or whatever, math, 20, shut up. And yeah, I don't know, it's just like this harmless comedy. Then I watched the Guardians of the Galaxy Holiday Special, which was a lot of fun. No, it's not like that essential, but it was good. Then I watched Stutz, which is that movie with Jonah Hill, documentary, whatever you want to call it, basically where he just interviews his own therapist, but everything is kind of fake as well, as they are in a studio, as they are kind of trying to get this conversation to seem natural, but it's not really, and that's kind of interesting. But I did have some issues with this film, like he's talking to his therapist, right? And they're talking about how the therapist like cares about him, how they're friends, and I'm like, well, at that point, it's not really therapy anymore then, is it? You're just talking to a friend who's giving you advice, who happens to be a therapist. I also didn't like when this film got into the therapy in this way that I feel like wouldn't help me if I was in therapy, where the guy kept saying like, okay, now imagine your demons. Now, what are your demons saying to you? It gets very like spiritual and shit, and it's like, my demons, my feelings, I can't have conversations with my feelings. They're not people. I just think that stuff is a bit silly, and it kind of ruined it a little bit for me. Anyway, then I watched The Knoll Diary, which has the dude from This Is Us in it, and it's got dogs, and it's a Christmas movie. And I'll be honest, I didn't finish this movie because it was just like, I saw where it was going. Then I watched Catwoman Hunted, which is this animated DC movie, and I have literally no thoughts about it. I really don't. Then I watched Disney Channel's Theme, a history mystery, which is technically a YouTube video, and you might not count this as a movie, but you know what? It goes for like an hour and a half or something, and it's on Letterboxd, so I counted it as a movie. Then I watched Come On, Come On, which is a movie that everybody was raving about last year or something, but we didn't get it until this year, and I watched it as soon as I possibly could, really, which was December this year, and yeah, I didn't really like it very much. It was okay. No, I liked it, but I didn't love it as much as everybody else has kind of made it out to be, how great it is. Then I watched Christmas Bloody Christmas, which was surprisingly not for me. I expected to love this movie, but I didn't. Then I watched About Fate, which is this Christmas movie rom-com thing. It's exactly what you think it's going to be, and there's not really anything wrong with that. It's probably better than it needs to be. I'll give it that. Then I watched Sonic 2. Sonic 2 is Sonic 2. I don't know, it was okay. Then I watched The Apology. I already forgot what that was. It has Skylar from Breaking Bad in it, and a gun. She's good in the movie, but as much as the premise intrigues me, which is about this kind of long lost family member showing up unannounced and just basically trying to get rid of him. As much as that kind of premise intrigues me, this movie was surprisingly boring. It was very much just a conversational piece, and it wasn't as thrilling as I thought it was going to be. Then I watched Father Stew, which is this like Catholic movie about Mark Wahlberg becoming a priest. I'm not religious, so like it didn't really speak to me, this film. It was fine for what it was though, I guess. Well made? I don't know, probably. Then I watched Strange World. I only watched this because Jake Gyllenhaal was in it, and I need to watch all of the Jake Gyllenhaal movies since he's my favorite actor. And yeah, I don't know, this was good, but it was pretty surface level for a Pixar movie, you know what I mean? Then I watched Pearl. I finally watched Pearl because I found ways outside of the Australian barrier, I'll just say that. And yeah, it was worth the wait. I think that this is a fantastic movie. And that's really all that I have to say about it right now. I did like that it kind of showed how Pearl herself delved down into the horrible person that she is depicted as in X. Although I will say that nothing in this film was really necessary. I feel like everything that we learned in X, we kind of already knew going into Pearl, and we didn't really learn anything new about her. But it was interesting seeing it play out. Then I watched The Desperate Hour, which is a Naomi Watts movie about her son who is maybe in a school shooting, and she basically has to get to the school as quickly as possible, but oh no, she's gone out for a run and she can't call an Uber or something, and she basically has to run through the woods talking to everybody on her phone. Definitely a COVID movie, and it was not that great. And that is the last of the 2022 movies that I saw this year. Now I'm going to get to the older movies that I watched at home. And let's try and get through this because there are over 300 of these. Alright, this is going to be a long video, but we knew that going in, didn't we? Okay. First I watched Death to 2021, which is a sequel to Death to 2022, and it's basically just all about making fun of the times. It was okay. Then I watched Kajillionaire, which was pretty good. Then I watched Wild, which is that movie about Reese Witherspoon going on a big old hike across America, and it was good. Then I watched Big Trouble, which was Not good. Then I watched Horse Girl, which was, yeah, it was pretty interesting, I suppose. Not that great. Then I watched Justine, which is about, what's it called? Not kidnapping. Babysitting a little girl, and it's maybe not a movie you'd expect me to like, but I did. Then I watched Hot Tub Time Machine, and speaking of Thor Love and Thunder and hating that, Hot Tub Time Machine is another movie that makes me want to vomit. So extremely unfunny and offensive and sexist and just shit. I hated this movie. Then I watched Waves, which is an absolute 10 out of 10 film. I was not expecting it to go in the direction that it did. Once it gets to that halfway point, you realize just what you're in for, and oh my god. Basically, this is a film about this, I believe it's football. He's a teenage football player, and it's all about the pressures of him trying to, like, you know, keep up with his athleticism, keep fit, and be a great football player and whatnot. But then it goes into much more dramatic themes later on. Something unexpected occurs, and from then on, oh my god, my heart. Waves is a fantastic film, and I don't want to spoil it, because really, that halfway point makes this film. Then I watched The Last Boy Scout. What the fuck is The Last Boy Scout? I don't know what that is. I can't think about what that is. I don't know. Who cares? Then I watched Hillbilly Elegy, which was alright. Then I watched Punch Drunk Love, which again, like I told you, I was going through the Paul Thomas Anderson movies earlier this year, so that was one of them. And Punch Drunk Love is probably my favorite of his movies. I liked it quite a lot. Then I watched Pete Davidson Alive from New York, which is another stand-up special. And maybe you think that's cheating, maybe you don't count that as a movie, but I do, so whatever. This one was not as good as I was expecting it to be, because I do like Pete Davidson quite a bit, but this wasn't that great. Then I watched Seinfeld, 23 Hours to Kill, which was also not that great. Very boomer humor. This one was very much full of boomer humor, and I wasn't a huge fan of it. Then I watched Demolition, which is a movie with Jake Gyllenhaal in it about basically getting over a death, and maybe not caring about the death that occurs and being a fucked up individual for not caring, but maybe caring but just not showing it and not realizing how much he cared. And I don't know, it's kind of an emotional movie. I liked it quite a bit. It's the second time I've tried to watch it. I tried to watch it a few years ago and didn't like it. I tried again, and I did. Then I watched Wildlife, which is directed by, what's his name? The dude that played Riddler, Paul Dano. And I'm not a huge fan of this movie. This is a Jake Gyllenhaal movie as well. Probably my least favorite Jake Gyllenhaal movie. Maybe. It's down there anyway. Then I watched Penguin Bloom, which is a good little Australian movie. It's got Rick Grimes in it, and it's good. It's good. Then I watched Rampart, which is a Woody Harrelson movie about a corrupt cop, and it's pretty, like, fucked up in that way, like what this dude does, and it's really interesting to see play out. Then I watched Cold in July. I only watched this because I was missing Dexter, and what's his name? Michael C. Hall is in it. It's not that good, but it was good to see Dexter again. Then I watched Apollo 18. This is a found footage horror movie about going to the moon, but then there are aliens or something there. I don't know. I thought it was terrible. I absolutely hated this movie. This is another one that makes me want to vomit. Then I watched Berlin Syndrome, which was pretty great, about a girl who gets kidnapped, and it's basically just about her being stuck in this room by this potential this previous potential romantic interest, and what she does from there to get out of that. Then I watched Wish You Were Here. Wish You Were Here. What's that? I was thinking of that Zach Braff movie, but that's not what that is. Wish You Were Here. What the fuck is Wish You Were Here? Okay, Wish You Were Here is about people missing, and I actually didn't like this one very much. And I also realized what The Last Boy Scout is. It's a movie that was written by Shane Black, not directed by him though, and it's like a buddy cop movie, but I actually didn't really like it that much either. Then I watched The Lobster, which I was actually surprised to like quite a bit. I didn't think I was going to like this one. I'm not a huge fan of the director. I think he's just a little bit too weird for my taste, but The Lobster I liked quite a bit. Then I watched Our Idiot Brother, which is a Paul Rudd movie, and he's playing like this stoner character, and yeah, it was alright. Then I watched Disney's Fast Pass, A Complicated History, and fuck you, this is a documentary. I'm counting it. This is by the same YouTube channel that did the other one about the Disney Channel mystery thing, and it's fantastic. Then I watched The Promotion, which is just this comedy. It's got Sean William Scott and the other guy, the Wreck-It Ralph guy, what's his name? John C. Reilly. And yeah, it's fine. It's fine. Then I watched Mr. Right, which is a movie about, it's like this rom-com, but it's like a spy movie as well. It's got, what's his name? The guy from Moon. I can't think of what his name is, but the guy from Moon and Anna Kendrick in it, and it's cute enough. Then I watched There Will Be Blood. Again, Paul Thomas Anderson. Didn't like this one as much as Punch Drunk Love, but it's undeniably a pretty fantastic film. Then I watched Cedar Rapids. It has the dude from The Hangover in it. I don't remember his name. the tall, nerdy looking dude. And it's about him going on this business trip and wanting to, like, I don't know, get a promotion or whatever. It was okay. Then I watched The Sitter. This is the Jonah Hill movie where he is babysitting somebody, a kid, and it was okay. Then I watched Boy, the Taika Waititi movie. I think this was his first one, or maybe that was Eagle versus Shark. Either way, this is what Taika Waititi should be making, if you ask me. I didn't love this movie, but I thought it was so much better than what he's been doing lately. To be honest, it's just so much more human. It's coming from a real place. And where he's gone on from there, like, he's just trying too hard to be absurd and funny. And I don't really like it that much. It's just personal taste, but I think Boy is way superior to Thor Love and Thunder and What We Do in the Shadows. Then I watched Chopper, about Chopper Reed, the Australian criminal guy with, what's his name? Fucking, why am I forgetting all the actors' names today? Eric Bana, thank you, me. Yeah, with him, and it was interesting. Then I watched Attack of the Hollywood Cliches. It was alright. Then I watched Jay and Silent Bob Reboot, which made me want to vomit. This was just such a shit movie. Kevin Smith is a guy who I like as a person. I love hearing him talk. His podcasts and stuff, pretty good. But I just hate, I almost hate every one of his movies. They're just shit. I'm sorry. He tells fantastic stories anecdotally, but film-wise, he just can't do it. I don't know what's wrong with it. He needs like an editor or something. He needs to be like, he needs to co-direct with somebody else, I think. He needs to be like held back, you know? I don't know. Then I watched An American Werewolf in London because my parents really wanted to watch it with me. They'd been talking about how great it is for years. And yeah, it was pretty great. I liked it. Not my favorite movie ever, but it was pretty good. Then I watched They Call Us Monsters, which is a documentary about these kids in juvenile detention, whatever it's called, like prison basically. And basically it's just all about trying to rehabilitate them. And it's this really touching film about these kids who, you know, arguably deserve a second chance. I liked it. Then I watched Jesus Camp, another documentary about a cult basically where these, in America, these people just kids get taken to Jesus Camp and it's just weird. They take that shit way too far, and it was, I don't know how I feel about this. I actually didn't rate this on Letterboxd because I'm like, I don't even know how to rate this. It's a very unique film. I didn't enjoy watching it, but it was interesting. Then I watched I Give It a Year, which is like this rom-com movie that I like. Then I watched Netflix versus the World, which is another documentary. This was about how Netflix basically took down Blockbuster, and it wasn't as informative as I wanted it to be, but like it was still pretty interesting. Then I watched Encanto, which is a movie that I loved so much more than I thought I was going to. Great Disney movie. Then I watched Our Friend, that has Jason Segel in it, and I liked it. Then I watched Wild Rose, about a musician, that was fine. Then I watched Coda, the Best Picture winner, and I loved it. Good choice, everybody. Good choice, the Academy. Then I watched Rumpa Stomper, which is this Australian classic about these neo-Nazis, and I hated it so much. I hated the main characters. I just hated spending time with them. It's got Russell Crowe in it, who I'm not a huge fan of either, and I just did not enjoy this movie at all. Then I watched Paddleton, which is about these friends. One of them is going to die because I think he has cancer or whatever, and it's basically about just them trying to enjoy their last days together, really. It's pretty sad. Then I watched The Station Agent, which has, what's his name? Oh no, what's his name? The guy from Game of Thrones. Peter Dinklage. Yes, got it. And it's just about him and how he is treated as a little person, and it's, I don't know, it's pretty emotional, you know. Then I watched Crash Pad, which is what? Comedy with Domhnall Gleeson. I liked this quite a bit. I don't really remember what it was about. Then I watched A Futile and Stupid Gesture, which is about the National Lampoon magazine, which I didn't know was a thing. And it was alright. Then I watched The Irishman. Finally, I caught up to The Irishman, and I thought it was really boring. Didn't really like it. I'm sorry. Then I watched Mass, which is about two pairs of parents who are parents of these kids who were involved in a school shooting. One of them was the shooter, one of them was the victim, and it's basically about who's to blame and forgiveness and just the very, very challenging conversation that they have. The whole movie is set in this one room and it's basically just talking the whole time, and it's absolutely riveting. Then I watched Grounded, the Last of Us behind the scenes documentary, and it was really interesting seeing how they did all that stuff with the motion capture and everything. But if I have to hear that quote one more time that I've heard so many times in YouTube video essays and this documentary and everything, where Ellie is like, everyone in my life has left me, fucking except for you. If I have to hear that one more time, like, that scene has been ruined for me because I've just heard it so many times and everybody always goes on about how good that part is. Anyway, then I watched Gonjiam Haunted Asylum. I watched this one because the YouTube channel Possessed by Horror was going on and on about how it was the scariest movie that she's ever seen. I watched it and I'm like, that wasn't that scary, sorry. It was good, but it wasn't that scary. Then I watched The Proposition. I watched this for my friend's podcast, Middle Class Film Class. Pete from Middle Class Film Class, they were covering this film, and I'm like, I'm going to watch the movie so I can listen to their podcast. So I did. And I didn't really like it that much, but it was okay. But the episode is good. Listen to Middle Class Film Class. It's one of my favorite podcasts of all time. They are hilarious. Then I watched The French Dispatch, which I'm not a huge fan of. Wes Anderson, and I don't know. Then I watched Girl Interrupted, which was good. Then I watched Happy Anniversary, which was really sad and good. Then I watched White Boy Rick, which was okay. Anchorman 2, better than I expected it to be. I'm not a big fan of the original Anchorman. Anchorman 2, I actually didn't mind. I thought it was pretty funny. Then I watched The Royal Tenenbaums. Again, Wes Anderson. I don't like Wes Anderson, and I keep trying to. And I keep failing to do so, and here we are. I didn't really like this movie very much. Then I watched Old School, the movie with Will Ferrell and Vince Vaughn and stuff. They go back to college, and it was about as dumb as to be expected. Then I watched Hard 8, again, Paul Thomas Anderson and Wes Anderson. I was trying to kind of go through both of their filmographies. Paul Thomas Anderson, the better Anderson. And Hard 8 is pretty good. Then I watched Mississippi Grind because I wanted to watch a similar movie, and it was kind of similar but not as good. Then I watched Half Nelson, which was a pretty good movie. It has Ryan Gosling in it. It has racism in it. It's good. Then I watched Blinded by the Light, which is about some sort of features music from some sort of famous musician, but I forgot who. Bruce Springsteen, right? Maybe. That could be wrong. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The movie was fine. Then I watched Ides of March, which was a really boring movie. That's all political. It's like a political thriller. I didn't like it that much, but it's not really for me. Then I watched Gangster Squad, which I feel so stupid. I don't like the clever political thrillers, but I like the stupid movie Gangster Squad. I'm ashamed to say I do. Everyone kind of shits on this movie, but I don't know what you expected. It's Gangster Squad. I don't know, it was dumb, but I liked it. Then I watched the Uncharted fan film, the short film that came out a few years ago with the correct casting of Nathan Fillion as Nathan Drake. And, you know, it's short, but it's much better than the Tom Holland movie, I gotta say. Then I watched Riders of Justice because somebody from one of my favorite podcasts, Anderson from the Film Vault, was going on and on and on about how good it is, and he wasn't wrong. This is a pretty great movie. Then I watched People, Places, Things. Then I watched I Used to Go Here, which is about somebody returning to their college like reunion thing. Then I watched Magnolia, again trying to get through the Paul Thomas Anderson movies. This was one of the better ones, if you ask me. I probably liked it more than There Will Be Blood, maybe. I'm not 100% sure. It may be about on par. Not my favorite movie ever. I don't think I like Magnolia as much as a lot of other people do. I don't understand what the fuck is going on with the frogs raining from the sky. I didn't really like that aspect to it, but the rest of the movie, pretty good. Then I watched Unicorn Store, which is that Brie Larson movie where she's like, I don't know, obsessed with finding like this magical unicorn or some shit. Kind of weird, but it was alright. God, I'm forgetting what all these movies are. Then I watched Tallulah, which I just had to look up as well. Tallulah is a movie that has Elliot Page. Previously, it was Alan Page, I believe, at the time. And this is about somebody who steals a baby, but not with like ill intent, and he was okay. Anyway, then I watched Into the Wild, which was fine. Then I watched Audition, which is a movie that really disappointed me. I've been wanting to watch it for a literal decade because I've heard it's like one of the best disturbing movies out there. You know what? Audition was kind of crap. Then I watched The House, which was alright. Then I watched Save Ralph, which is a short film. It goes for 4 minutes. Is that a cheat? I don't know, but I'm counting it as a movie. Then I watched A Million Little Pieces, which is about a drug addict. Then I watched The Last Kiss, which is a terrible movie. It's got Zach Braff in it. I'm a huge fan of Scrubs, so I wanted to watch it. And guess what? Nah, not good. Then I watched Win It All, which is a movie about a gambler, as the title may suggest. I like the main guy that's in it, but I don't remember the actor's name. And it was fine. Then I watched American Reunion, which is the American Pie, like, legacy sequel or whatever that came out like 10 years after the original or something like that. And I thought going into it, like, okay, so the original ones are a bit outdated. They haven't aged quite gracefully as you might hope. They're pretty offensive looking back on them. They wouldn't fly today, a lot of the stuff that goes on in those movies. And I'm like, American Reunion, it came out later. They got older. I'm sure it matured. I'm sure they show how they grow. This is one of the only ones that I had never seen. I used to like this franchise a lot when I was younger, and I really grew out of that. But I went back into American Reunion thinking maybe there's some growth here, maybe I'll give it a go, maybe I'll relate to it a bit because they're all a bit older and stuff. So I went into it, and it's just as bad as all the others. Again, it's a franchise I used to like, but they are just so immature and gross and just sexist and horrible, and I just hate them, to be honest. And American Reunion is just as bad as the rest of them. I don't like these movies anymore. I've officially outgrown them. Then I watched Boogie Nights, again, Paul Thomas Anderson. Then I watched Buffaloed, good movie. Then I watched Like Father, good movie, I guess, it was okay. Then I watched The Last Duel. The Last Duel is where it's at. This is a movie that shows different perspectives about a certain situation that goes on, and it shows the small intricacies how people view a certain situation differently. Everybody has their own truth and their own version of history, and it shows how these little misconceptions can take place, and it shows just how people can get out of certain things and things like that where they probably shouldn't have. And this is basically all about the Me Too movement, but in the medieval era, and I found it really fascinating. I think this is a great film. Then I watched The Bronze, which is about a bronze gold medalist of the Olympics who then goes on to train somebody else going into the Olympics, and it's okay. Then I watched Little Boxes, which is a movie about these people moving into a new neighborhood, and it's about racism and stuff, and it was good. Then I watched Batman Beyond, Return of the Joker, which is this animated movie. I haven't seen the cartoon that this is like a sequel to, but it was still pretty good. Then I watched Gladiator for the first time. I'd never seen Gladiator, can you believe it? And you know what? It's a crowd pleaser, and I wasn't sure what to expect from it, but it's pretty damn good. It really gets you on the main character's side. You really want him to get revenge on the people who kill his family and stuff. And Joaquin Phoenix in it doing the thumbs down thing, it's like, you just fucking hate the dude, and it's just a pretty damn good movie. I can see why it was remembered as such a classic, like 22 years later. I get it. It's probably worthy of it. It's a pretty damn good movie. Next up, I saw Maps to the Stars, which I didn't really like. This is a David Cronenberg movie that's super different from what I thought it would be. Then I watched Batman and Mr. Freeze, Sub-Zero, another animated Batman movie. This one, nowhere near as good as the Return of the Joker one. Then I watched Walk the Line for the first time. This is a David Mangold film about Johnny Cash. Then I watched Inside, which is a horror movie about a woman who's it's a home invasion movie about somebody who is trying to literally take the baby from a still pregnant woman, and it's pretty disturbing. Then I watched Cop Shop, which is just a really fun action movie set in a prison. Really enjoyed that one. Then I watched Irreversible, which is a movie that I think had more important things to say than I enjoyed it, if that makes any sense. Like, I'm glad that I watched it, but I didn't exactly like watching it, I guess. Irreversible is all about the inevitability of passing time, and how once that time passes and certain events take place, that you can never really ever go back. It's a very interesting film that plays with the idea of time as it jumbles with the timeline and the order that we see things in. It's basically a story told in reverse, and it's just a very well done film that I think has a lot to say about trauma, and I kind of think everybody who can handle it should see it. Okay, now we are up to April in the older films, just by the way. Then I watched Level 16, which is like this weird sci-fi movie about these girls who grow up in like this facility and have to behave in a very particular way, and it's just, I don't know, it's like this interesting movie, I don't know. Then I watched The Family Fang, which was okay, just like this dramedy movie. Then I watched Ali, which is about Muhammad Ali, and it's just about his life and stuff, and I didn't know anything about his life. I watched like quite a few biopics this year, including the Johnny Cash one and stuff like that, and a few more that I'm about to get to as well. And yeah, this was probably one of the better ones. Then I watched Singles, which is this 1992 film about young people, young adults, like people my age and stuff, and it was fine, but I absolutely didn't remember it. I just had to look it up now because I'm like, what the fuck is Singles? Anyway, then I watched Lakeview Terrace, and I didn't forget that one because that one is so good. Oh my god, Lakeview Terrace is about basically this corrupt cop guy who just will not leave his new neighbors alone, who he doesn't approve of having moved in next door for whatever reason. And it's just about the tension raising in their relationship and just the lengths that they are willing to go, the petty lengths that they are willing to go to piss each other off and get each other to move, but it's in a very serious and dark way. This is like a dark thriller about this asshole guy who just keeps terrorizing this family, basically. And it's awesome. It's a really good movie. Then I watched The Aviator, which is a Martin Scorsese movie about this dude who is an aviator or something. I don't remember his name, and it was good. Then I watched Ray, which is a movie about Ray Charles, and yeah, another good one. Then I watched A Beautiful Mind, another biopic about a man who is really good at math and stuff. Then I watched another biopic, American Gangster, also has Russell Crowe in it, about American gangsters. This one was actually awesome. I liked American Gangster quite a bit. Then I watched Father Figures, which is a comedy, like a dramedy about trying to find their dad, their biological dad, and it was alright. Then I watched Oxygen, which is a French movie, I believe, about a woman who is stuck in this contraption, basically, and she's running out of oxygen rapidly. And that's all I'll say from there. It's basically like that movie Buried with Ryan Reynolds in it, but it's got a bit more of a sci-fi edge. Then there is The Tender Bar, the Ben Affleck movie, and this is basically just like a coming-of-age movie that was pretty good. Is it that memorable? No. Is it that mind-blowing? No. But you know, it's a solid 3-star type of film. Then I watched Jerry Maguire for the first time, which is not that memorable to me. Like, I remember this movie being fine, but like, I don't really understand why this is held as like such a classic. Like, I've seen the poster so much. When I used to go to the video shop and rent movies, Jerry Maguire was always there. I'm like, that's a movie I should probably see. And I finally did, and it was okay. Then I watched Apollo 13, another biopic about the failed moon landing. And yeah, man, this is a pretty damn good movie, a Ron Howard film that tells its story in a really emotional way that you might not expect from something that would, you know, you're expecting to go into this in a pretty, like, you're expecting it to be pretty emotionally dry. It just a depiction of the events, and it does both. And I liked it. Then I watched Game of Death, which is this movie about, like, they play a board game, the Game of Death, and basically they are going to be killed unless they kill other people. like going and killing other people is how you like get rid of the curse. It's kind of like It Follows, but like much more violent, and it's like schlocky and B grade and all that kind of shit, but it's really fun. I like it quite a bit. Then I watched Cinderella Man. I watched a lot of Russell Crowe movies this year, apparently. This is about a boxer who nicknamed the Cinderella Man, and it was pretty good. The most depressing movie of all time, though, by the way, the Cinderella Man. Like, everything that could possibly go wrong for this guy is going wrong, and it's just like depressing as fuck, but it's pretty good. Then I watched The 25th Hour, which is about a man who is going to go to prison in 24 hours. It's basically just about his last day before going in, and it's pretty fascinating. Then I watched The Beach, the Leonardo DiCaprio movie from, I believe, 1999. It was good-ish, I guess. It was alright. Then I watched Armageddon for the first time. I'd never seen Armageddon before, and you know what? It was about as dumb as you might think, but it was also kind of good, like in a genuine way. I genuinely like Armageddon quite a bit. Then I watched Werewolves Within, which is a movie about werewolves within the house that they're in. They have to figure out which one of them is a werewolf, and it's a comedy, and it's good. Then I watched Antichrist, and I regret watching Antichrist because that is a waste of time. Okay, I don't actually believe that watching any film is truly a waste of time. I got something out of it, I suppose. I learned that I didn't like it, at least. I got rid of the curiosity of wanting to see Antichrist. But basically, to me, Antichrist is a movie that had an interesting premise. I like the idea behind it. I think it could have been a lot better. But in the end, it just turns out to be nonsense, and I don't really get why anybody's doing what they're doing. And it's just like, I don't know, I get it. It's symbolic, okay? There's probably like religious motifs in there or some shit that I'm not catching. But to me, I don't know. It didn't speak to me. Then I watched Four Rooms, which is a movie that Quentin Tarantino wrote but didn't direct, about a hotel and 4 different stories taking place in that hotel. Some of them are very funny and very good. Some of them aren't that great. The one with like the witches isn't that great. But then the one with the kids getting into trouble, it's so funny. If you've seen it, I highly recommend just watching even just that segment alone. It's pretty good. Then I watched The Whole 9 Yards, which was fine. Then I watched Michael Key, Shame the Devil, another stand-up special, Shut Up, They Count, and I don't really remember this one, to be honest. Then I watched Sonic the Hedgehog, the first film. I actually watched this earlier in the year than I watched Sonic 2, but because I'm doing it in the order that I'm doing it in, and these are the films that I had never seen before, but they're older films, I'm saying it after, but I watched it first. Does that make sense? Yes. Okay. Then I watched Ronnie Chiang, Asian Comedian Destroys America, another stand-up special. I liked this one. Then I watched A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood, which is that movie with Tom Hanks in it about Mr. Rogers. Somebody who I have no affiliation with. I didn't grow up watching this guy. I didn't really know who it was. But it's still interesting learning a bit about who he was and how he kind of was apparently this absolutely flawless, perfect, just gentle, nice man. But there's something to that, and this movie kind of explores that a little bit. There's something to that seems dodgy. Like, you kind of, to me, like, his reputation, it feels weird, but apparently, in the movie, they kind of proved that no, he was just a stand-up guy. Speaking of stand-up, I watched Philly Wang Wang, which is another stand-up special, which I remember being pretty good. Then I watched Simon Amstel, Set Free, another stand-up special. Then I watched Greg Davies, You Magnificent Beast, another stand-up special, and I didn't really like that one. The others were alright. This one, I didn't really like this one very much. Then I watched Long Shot, which is a short documentary about how the show Curb Your Enthusiasm basically saved a man from going to prison for his entire life because he showed up in the background at a baseball game where they just happened to be shooting that day, which proved that he wasn't at a crime that took place at the same time. It's monumentally crazy just how lucky this man got for all of these situations that just happened to align. And yeah, it's pretty great. The story is fantastic. The documentary is okay, but the story is fantastic. And that kind of makes the documentary fantastic. Does that make any sense? Then I watched The Speed Cubers, which is literally another short documentary about people doing like Rubik's Cubes competitions. And like, it's fascinating seeing how obsessed these people get and how they want to be the best at something that seems so pointless to people who aren't interested in it. Rubik's Cubes, who cares? But these kids fucking care, and you care to see them succeed. It made me really care about a fucking Rubik's Cube competition. I thought it was done really well. Then I watched The Day After Tomorrow because, again, I need to watch all of the Jake Gyllenhaal movies, and this movie is okay. Then I watched Shelter from 2014. This is a movie about homelessness with Anthony Mackie in it, Falcon himself, and it's just a really depressing but well done movie. Then, speaking of the exact opposite, I watched the Lego Movie 2, which was alright. Then I watched Results, which is about a personal trainer and stuff. It was okay. Then I watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail for the first time. Never seen it before, and I will probably never see it again because I'm so sorry. Big fans of this film. I did not like this at all. Maybe you're learning something about me here. I don't like Taika Waititi either. I don't like Monty Python and the Holy Grail. It's just not the kind of comedy that really speaks to me. This movie just felt stupid. I don't know, man. I'm okay with stupid humor, but I don't know. This one didn't click. I don't like Jackass's humor. I don't like Monty Python's humor. I like Tucker and Dale versus humor versus evil. Humor. Yeah, so Monty Python and the Holy Grail honestly was a grind to get through for me. It just felt so, I don't know, silly for the sake of being silly, and it just wasn't funny. Like, can somebody explain to me, please, what the joke is when it comes to the guys who say, we are the knights who say knee? What is the joke there? What's funny about that? Is the joke that they say it and it's random? Why are knights saying knee, 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 knee? Is that the joke? I don't know. Please, if you know what I'm talking about, explain to me why it's funny that they are knights and they are saying knee. Why is that funny? I'm not joking. I really, really don't get it. I don't get how that's funny. And basically everything along with this movie, except for that one scene where they are trying to cross the bridge and the troll is giving them riddles, and he gives one guy these really easy ones and then the next guy these really hard ones. That part was pretty funny. That's pretty much the only part I liked. Anyway, then I watched Little Children, which is a pretty weird, disturbing movie. Then I watched LA Confidential, which was, you know, pretty good, but it does have Kevin Spacey in it. I didn't know that going into it, and I'm like, ah, shit, I'm watching another Kevin Spacey movie. Whenever I happen to accidentally stumble across one of his movies, which has happened a couple times this year, I'm like, ah, shit. But the movie itself was like pretty good, unfortunately. Then I watched Men of Honor, which is a movie about like the Navy and stuff, and it was okay. Then I watched Opening Night, and I did not finish this. This is like this musical movie, and it's kind of like set in real time as they're preparing to set up for the musical, and it's all about like behind the scenes, like backstage and stuff, and I thought it was pretty shit. Then I watched The Trial of the Chicago 7, which was good but kind of boring. Then I watched Shiva Baby. That was not boring. Shiva Baby is kind of like the uncut gems for young adult women. This is basically just, yeah, about being in a place full of people. It's just this intense moment, but it's a bit more comedic though. Like, it's a pretty funny, entertaining movie, but it's also very tense as well. It's really well done. I really enjoy this movie a lot. And the actor from it shows up in Bodies. And I think she's going to show up in some interesting projects in years to come. That's just my assumption. Then I watched Bottle Rocket. Again, trying to watch the Wes Anderson stuff. This is his first film. He made a short, which I also watched right after Bottle Rocket. That's the next one. Bottle Rocket, the feature though, probably my favorite Wes Anderson movie, if I'm being honest. And that's because it's his least trying to be quirky film. It's just a straightforward film that's pretty good. You know what I mean? I feel like later on he gets a bit too cocky. He's such a perfectionist. Everything is framed in a quirky little way where, the characters are standing there in the corner. How quirky. How artful. That's how Wes Anderson films feel to me. Like, everything is just, it's kind of like Taika Waititi actually. Everybody's acting awkward, but it feels like they're trying to, and I just don't buy it, and I just don't like it very much. Then I watched the Bottle Rocket short. Film pretty much the same way, to be honest. Then I watched the Darjeeling Limited, another Wes Anderson film. Then I watched American Beauty. Unfortunately, another Kevin Spacey movie, but this is a good movie, undeniably, I do have to say. But, fittingly, Kevin Spacey's a fucking creep in it. So, you don't feel that bad about watching this one because you're looking at him and you're like, what a scumbag. It doesn't really conflict, if that makes any sense. Then I watched Ride the Eagle, which is about a guy whose mother has died, whose estranged mother has died. He hasn't talked to her in years. She leaves him a tape with instructions in things to do so that he can inherit her cabin, her like home basically. And from then on, it's basically just him doing things and learning things about himself, and it's like this wholesome movie that's pretty good. Then I watched Sleeping with Other People, which is a terrible movie that I didn't like very much. Then I watched Columbus, which was another movie that I was expecting to love, but it was actually kind of boring. I don't know. I like movies that are kind of like rom-com things about people just talking. I absolutely love the Before Sunrise movies, for example. And this is going for the same thing, but I just don't think quite has the charm of those movies. I won't say it's a terrible movie. I think Columbus is good overall, but it didn't really make me feel too much for the characters in the same way that the Before Sunrise Sunset movies do. Then I watched Doggy Heaven, the James Wan and Lee Whannell short about a man who accidentally gets sent to Doggy Heaven when he dies. Strange short. And yeah, I don't know what else to say. I did a whole video about it. If you want to check it out on my channel, I'm sure you can find it. Basically, it's made by James Wan and Lee Whannell, who are the guys behind Saw and other big horror movies like The Conjuring and Insidious. And yeah, Doggy Heaven is this quirky comedy that they tried to make in the early 2000s, and it just does not fit in with their filmography. It's so weird. Then I watched Let's Go to Prison, which is a Will Arnett comedy about a guy going to prison. It was okay. It wasn't that good. Then I watched The Starling, which is a Melissa McCarthy movie that's more of a drama than a comedy, and I actually liked it quite a bit, but it's not the best film of all time. Then I watched Horrible Bosses 2, and it's so weird. I don't like the first Horrible Bosses, much like I don't like the first Anchorman movie, but I like Anchorman 2, and I like Horrible Bosses 2. Can somebody explain that to me? I don't get it. Then I watched The King of Comedy, the movie that basically everybody was going on about how Joker completely ripped off. And you know what? Fuck, it kind of did. This is very similar to Joker, or at least the other way around. Joker is very similar to this. There are a lot of parallels. And yeah, Robert De Niro is fantastic in it. This is a great film, and surprisingly as well, it's only rated PG, even though it's basically about this psychopath who's obsessed with success, but is basically just this loser not getting anywhere. I love this movie, to be honest. Then I watched Bad Words, which is a Jason Bateman comedy about a spelling bee. This adult enters like this children's spelling bee because he finds some sort of loophole or whatever where technically he's allowed to compete, and it's alright, I guess. Then I watched The Wrestler, which is a fantastic movie about this aging wrestler who's basically getting too old to continue doing his wrestling career, but like he's just too attached to it to say goodbye. He's too attached to it to leave. And so when he keeps going when he shouldn't, he starts to injure himself, but keeps going when he shouldn't. And basically it's all about his obsession with wanting to be great, but really failing in every other aspect of his life. It's a really depressing movie, and I think it's really fantastic. It's Aaron Aronofsky, by the way, so if you know his work, he's definitely somebody who goes into very, depressing themes and often makes kind of odd movies, like Mother, for example, is one of his. But this is a very straightforward drama. I was surprised to find that, and I loved it. Then I watched Censor, which is about a film censor, literally a woman whose job it is to censor films that get too graphic in terms of violence and stuff. There's also a interweaving story about her missing sister. It gets a little bit weird by the end. I'm not sure what's real and what's not, but I like this movie quite a bit. Then I watched Rent-A-Pow, which is a movie that I think, again, like Us and Get Out, is a flawless, perfect film. I think that Rent-A-Pow is one of the best films of all time. I really do. And I raved and raved about it earlier this year when I watched it. I made a whole video about it. This is about a guy who basically finds a tape that's designed to be your friend, that's designed to have conversations with you, but obviously since it's tape, it's not actually talking to you, it's all pre-recorded. But for this lonely man, it turns into something so much more substantial than, somebody who arguably is more normal would find it to be. And it's really just all about loneliness, and it's all about how this one guy starts getting to the lengths where he cares about this tape more than really anything else in his life, and it's fascinating to see it all play out. Then I watched Patty Cakes, and this is about a woman who wants to be a rapper, and I didn't finish it because it was so cringy. I thought, I don't know, there's something about rappers who aren't good at it that is so embarrassing to watch, and maybe she is good at it, maybe people think she's good at it, I don't know. I don't like rap, I don't really know what's that good about I'm not the authority on what's good rap or not, is basically what I'm trying to say. But to me, it just felt cringe. It felt like it was trying to be funny. It felt like it was trying to be cool, but it just wasn't either of those things. I don't know. Then I watched Injustice, the animated movie. I believe that came out last year. And basically this is based on the video game Injustice, which is based on the DC Comics, about Superman basically going evil. And it's all about how half the DC superheroes go on one side and the other side is basically the Marvel Captain America Civil War storyline, but using their DC characters, and actually done quite a bit better, at least in the video game anyway. In this just short film that's like an hour, 20 minutes long, it's not really long enough to tell the story in quite the same way. Definitely nowhere near as good as the video game, but it gets the job done okay, and I still think it's a pretty interesting story. Then I watched See You Yesterday, which is this weird little time travel film that I thought was really creative, and I would recommend quite a bit. Then I watched American Son, which is this movie that's all set in a police station. It's all just like it feels like a stage show, to be honest, and it's very good. I like it a lot. Then I watched Mortal Kombat Legends Battle of the Realms, which is the sequel to Mortal Kombat the Scorpion's Revenge thing that came out a couple years ago. Not as good as that one, but it was fine. Then I watched Brad's Status, which is about a kid who's trying to get into college, and it has, what's his name in it? The Zoolander man, Ben Stiller. Why am I forgetting every actor's name today? Then I watched A Scanner Darkly, which I did not like. Then I watched Minding the Gap, which is a really great little documentary about a group of skateboarders. But one of the guys in particular is somebody who, over time of the documentary, becomes reckless and really begins to just make some really bad choices. And we kind of see it all in real time start taking place. And it's basically about whether the documentarian himself, who is one of the skateboarding kids within the crew, whether or not it's his responsibility to just document this, or whether he should intervene and, you know, be a good friend and try and help the situation that's going on, when one of the crew members of this skateboarding team really starts to show his true colors as like this abusive asshole. And it's really interesting seeing the moral dilemma of the documentarian and what he chooses to do from there. I do think that the film from then on, later on, redeems this guy who does some wrong things a little bit too much. In my opinion, I'm not so sure he really deserved it. It was definitely an interesting movie. I liked it quite a bit, but I didn't quite like where it ended up with this abusive guy basically getting redeemed. I didn't really like that aspect to it. I know that's a bit of a spoiler, I guess, but watch it. I don't think that ruins it, and I think that if anything, that's only going to intrigue you to watch it and see what you think for yourself. I'm interested. If you watch this movie just because I've said it here, let me know. I'm fascinated. Then I watched An Education, which is about a groomer, basically. It's about a guy who makes a relationship with this underage girl, basically shows her the time of her life. I can take you to these fancy places and we can go do this, we can go do that. Everything's romantic and perfect. You don't have to go to school anymore. You don't have to be your own person. Just depend on me entirely. And we can see from then on that once she grows out of his particular age bracket that he wants, he's obviously just going to ditch her. And it's this really fucked up movie about this abusive guy who's really taking advantage of this girl and leaving her to stray when she gets too old. She's obviously going to be left with really no opportunities. It's about how she's giving up on school, she's giving up on her opportunities, she's giving up on her academics and learning and all that kind of important stuff and her own growth, just to sacrifice all that shit just to be with this guy, who she sees as perfect. And it just goes to show just how these sorts of people do kind of groom young girls into these kinds of situations and basically fuck up their lives. Basically, this movie is about just how important it is for people and women in particular to be their own person, to get an education and to get every opportunity that they can get, and to not give in to these groomers and weird people trying to take advantage of us and that kind of stuff. I thought it was a really good film. Then I watched Yesterday, which is the movie about the guy who's obsessed with the Beatles or whatever. He goes back in time. No, he doesn't go back in time. He goes to an alternate universe where the Beatles never existed. He rips off all their work and basically takes all the credit, but technically, since they didn't exist, he's not actually doing anything wrong in this alternate universe, but, it still feels kind of wrong. But it's like this cute comedy movie. I liked it a bit. Then I watched Birthmarked, which was okay, kind of a weird movie about the nature versus nurture argument. It's basically about these parents who are scientists who agree from birth to raise their children in very specific ways, trying to prove if they can alter their behavior and who they become. And it's like pretty fucked up if you actually think about it, but as a film where it's not actually happening to people, it's like, that's an interesting concept. And it was alright. Then I watched If Beale Street Could Talk, which is a really harrowing film about just shitty things that have happened in real life. This is a film that delves with racism and somebody getting wrongly accused because of racism, and it's definitely a very infuriating film. Then I watched Dating Amber, which I thought it was a really touching. Then I watched Big, which is the Tom Hanks movie where he is a kid and then he becomes old overnight or whatever, and it's pretty funny. Then I watched Clue, which is the movie that's based on the board game Cluedo. That's what we call it in Australia anyway. I guess everyone else, they just call it Clue, the board game. We call it Cluedo. Basically, it's like this murder mystery. It's got 3 alternate endings, which is always kind of this fun little thing. And it's such a funny movie. I wasn't expecting it to be so funny, but oh my god, this movie made me laugh out loud. And Tim Curry, the dude from Home Alone 2, who says, "Have a lovely day," that dude in this film is so fucking good in it. Oh my god. And it was a lot more like slapsticky than I was expecting it to be as well. Then I watched The Infinite Man, which is what is The Infinite Man? Okay, sorry, hang on, I just made a mistake. So, I watched The Infinite Man, which is a little Australian film about a guy who is trying to make a romantic weekend with his girlfriend, and it turns into this infinite time travel loop. But I thought that was See You Yesterday, which I said earlier. I saw See You Yesterday, which is another movie about time travel, but it's a completely different film. This one is set in, I believe, New York. It's set in some sort of American city, and it's about black teenagers trying to get out of a police shooting that takes place through time travel travel, and basically it really molds together like a light-hearted time travel adventure comedy kind of film with a very serious topic about racism and real things that happen in America pretty much on the daily, and it's a pretty fantastic film. But that is See You Yesterday. The Infinite Man is the other one about the guy trying to make the romantic weekend with his girlfriend, and it's also about time travel. I got those confused. Just a little correction for you right there. Anyway, then I watched Joe Bell. Then I watched Audible, which is a short about a football team in America, but the difference is that they are all deaf players, and they even play like fully hearing teams and stuff. They sometimes even prove to have an advantage over them in certain ways because they have this certain connection with each other. And it's just this very sweet film, sort of, about these kids and just how normal they really are. Like, it's just interesting seeing that they can do everything that we hearing folk can, you know. They're playing football. It's inspiring to see them do that stuff. And I thought that this was a very touching film that was really well done. Then I watched Notes from Melanie, which is the Chris Stuckman short he made a few years ago, which was not mind-blowing, but it was okay. I thought, you know, it was good. It's fun seeing Chris Stuckman and what he's capable of. I'm really interested and looking forward to his feature film coming out next year or the year after, or something called Shelby Oaks, a horror movie that he is making. You know, Chris Stuckman is definitely a big YouTube hero of mine, so yeah. That should be cool. Then I watched Titane, and this is going to be a huge hot take, but Titane is another movie that makes me want to vomit. Titane is so stupid and nonsensical. I don't get what people see in this film. I don't like it in any way. Then I watched Hungry Hearts, which is this really weird movie about a woman who's basically like this anti-vaxxer and how she doesn't want to treat her child in the way that like she should. And it's basically about like how this kid is going to die because of how she is trying to treat this child. And it's just about the moral dilemma of like, you know, it's her kid, it's the mother, it's her decision. But when it's endangering the child, they've got to put a stop to it. And yeah, it's like this interesting little film in that way. Then I watched Hello, My Name is Doris, which was okay. It's about this old woman who basically doesn't want to be old. She's trying to prove that she can still be young and stuff, and it's alright. Then I watched Boys Don't Cry, and I really want to talk about this film a little bit because I thought it was really fascinating. Basically, it is about this transsexual person who has gone from a female to the male gender. And basically, it's all about this true story that actually happened where they were treated absolutely horribly. And I wanted to talk about this because I watched this movie and I thought it was a really important film. I thought it did everything, like it depicted this character in a really likable way. You really feel bad for this character. You really like this character. And it's a film that is really interesting because a lot of people accuse it of being really exploitive. And I disagree with that. I think that it's a film that doesn't hold back on showing you the horrible violence that occurred on this real life person. And I think it needs that. I think that that is essential to this story. And I'm interested on anyone else who has seen it, what they think about that. Because I can see an argument being made where it's like, this is a film. Okay, and films are economical. It made money, and technically it made money off of this real life person's death. Okay, I will say that. That is technically a thing that literally happened. But I don't think that just because it's a film, it's still an important story to tell, I think. And it's still a piece of art more so than a cash cow machine. Does that make sense? I get that it made money off of it, and I get that that feels icky. But I still think that the story that it told matters. And I think that showing it in the harsh truth way that it did, I think that that was important. But maybe it's not my place to say. I get that, like, you know, being a cis white male and whatever, that may not be my place. But that's how I felt about it. I thought this movie was fantastic, personally. Then I watched Feels Good Man, which is the documentary about Pepe the Frog, the meme thing, and it was actually not as good as I was expecting it to be. Then I watched the Austin Powers trilogy, the epic trilogy that was, and it was okay. I watched all three of them. I didn't love any of them, but they were, like, kind of funny, I guess. Then I watched Jurassic Park 3. This was the only one I hadn't seen. So yeah, now I've seen all the Jurassic Park movies. And you know what? 1, 2, and 3, I think they're all about as good as each other. I know, that's a crazy thing to say. Everybody thinks the first one is by far the best. I like 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Then I watched Turner and Hooch, the Tom Hanks movie where he's friends with a dog, but he's also a cop, and it's kind of cute. Then I watched Coach Carter, which is a Samuel L. Jackson movie where he's a basketball coach. It was alright. Then I watched You've Got Mail, another Tom Hanks movie. It's a rom-com that was okay. Then I watched We Need to Do Something, which is this really weird movie about a family who gets stuck in their own bathroom when a hurricane hits, and then it becomes like this weird horror movie within, and you don't quite know what's real, you don't quite know what's going on, and it gets very strange. The dad character in particular is such a fucking weirdo. He gets really enraged at nothing, but it's kind of funny, but I'm not sure it's meant to be, but it made me enjoy the film anyway. It's weird and I like it. Then I watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, the 1990 film. I had never seen any of those older Ninja Turtles movies. I'd only seen the 2003 cartoon, which is my favorite iteration, even still after having seen these films. And, this movie's, I can see how it was like popular with kids and whatever. It's not exactly the best thing ever. The costumes are pretty bad and stuff like that, but it was fun to watch. Then I watched Dinner in America, which is a fantastic film that I urge everybody to watch. Basically just about these outcasts who find each other, and it's kind of wholesome in that way, and I like it. Then I watched Shithouse, which is kind of a similar type of movie to Dinner in America, sort of. It's basically about this guy who's trying to start a relationship with a girl. They're both in college. The girl is like less interested in him. She just like wants to spend the one night with him, and then it's just like, okay, cool, this was casual and whatever. But it's basically about how the guy gets too attached too quickly, and their conversations from there. And I liked it. It was about how this guy had a lot of growing up to do, about how he wasn't quite ready to be in college just yet. And there's this really sad moment where he calls his mum, and like he just misses home and stuff. It's really just it's a coming of age film about somebody who probably should have already grown up a little bit more than he already has. But you feel bad for this character, but he's a bit of a dick because he also gets too attached to people, expects too much from people, like the romantic interest in this film. And I don't know. I think that it's a film that's really going to hit home with people who are in college, in America anyway, like the types of people who go interstate to live at college while they attend, which we don't really do here in Australia. I don't know, maybe some people do, but I don't know anyone who has done that. We just go to the college that's close to us and still live at home. I don't know, that's what we do. Anyway, then I watched Heathers, and I didn't really like it that much. Then I watched the next two Ninja Turtles movies from the 90s, which were kind of just got worse and worse. 2 is worse than 1, and then 3 is worse than 2, but they're all, they're Ninja Turtles movies. Well, I wasn't expecting greatness. Then I watched Top Gun, the original Top Gun. I was not preparing for Top Gun Maverick because I don't care about seeing Top Gun Maverick. I haven't seen it. I probably will not see it, but I did watch the original just because it's meant to be such a classic, and I'm like, I should probably see it. And is what I say to Top Gun. Whatever. Then I watched You Might Be the Killer, which is this weird slasher movie about a guy who basically is accidentally or unknowingly, unconsciously killing people, being the slasher killer in his very own film. And it's like this comedy movie that I liked alright. Then I watched Wrinkles the Clown, which is this kind of documentary, I guess, about this clown he's a clown for hire, but he's a scary clown. Parents can hire him for misbehaving children to scare them straight, basically. And it's a really weird movie where by the end of it, you don't know if Wrinkles the Clown is real. It tricks you, this film. I will say that. And it's very intriguing. Then I watched The Intruder, which is this movie about a supermarket slasher movie, basically. A grocery store. There's a killer killing a bunch of workers at a supermarket. And it has Sam Raimi in it and Ted Raimi as well, and it was not really that great, to be honest. Then I watched Chopping Mall, which is very similar, but this is set in like a shopping center, like a big mall place. And this is about killer robots taking over the mall who were designed for security but are now killing people. Then I watched The Mule, which is a movie about a guy who is smuggling drugs across the country from Thailand or whatever, and basically he gets caught, he gets held in whatever it's called, holding, but he still has the drugs in him. And basically, if he can keep them in him for long enough for the like police's time restraint on how long they can hold somebody without evidence. If he can hold it in for long enough, he can be free. Basically, it's a whole movie about a guy trying to avoid shitting for like 2 days. And I actually liked it. Then I watched Jersey Girl, which is that Ben Affleck movie, and it was okay. Then I watched The Wolf of Snow Hollow, which is really a fantastic film. Jim Cummings is a great director. Can't wait to see what else he makes, because this is so damn good. Then I watched The Rundown, or Welcome to the Jungle, the movie with The Rock and Scott... What's his name? It doesn't matter. Stifler from American Pie, that guy. This is just like this action comedy that's alright. Then I watched Any Questions for Ben, which is this Australian rom-com movie that was kind of shit. But it was fun seeing Melbourne, because I live in Melbourne, if you don't know that. And I'm like, oh my god, I actually recognize that place. And that's a rarity in films. Then I watched All My Friends Are Dead, which was pretty funny. It was pretty good. Then I watched Tau, T-A-U, which is about artificial intelligence, and I liked it. Then I watched The Talented Mr. Ripley, which is a movie that was way different than I thought it was going to be. It's basically about this guy who like takes identities of people and also kills people. And I thought this was just going to be like this drama movie about a guy going to Italy or something, but it's like this thriller movie, and I fucking liked it a lot. Then I watched American Made, and this is about a guy who worked with Pablo Escobar. I don't remember the real guy's name, but basically he got hired to transport heavy loads of drugs, cocaine I think, from Colombia or whatever. It stars Tom Cruise, and it's fucking awesome. I liked it a lot. Then I watched Moonrise Kingdom, which again, Wes Anderson, man, I don't know. I didn't really like it that much. It was okay. Then I watched Bill and Ted, the first Bill and Ted movie, which I had never seen before. And yeah, I don't know. It was pretty funny, I suppose. Then I watched The Best of Enemies. Then I watched a movie called Fear, and this is the movie with Mark Wahlberg in it and Reese Witherspoon, and it's basically just about this obsessive boyfriend, and it was like alright. Then I watched What If It Works, which is this Australian rom-com that was pretty okay as well. Then I watched a movie called Wounds, which is this horror movie with Armie Hammer in it. I know, Armie Hammer, he's like kind of blacklisted nowadays, but I watched Wounds and it was bad. Then I watched 42, which is one of Chadwick Boseman's last films. Then I watched Mixtape, which is about this little girl finding a mixtape from her mum, basically, and learning about her mum through the mixtape, her dead mum, and it was alright. Then I watched Brawl in Cell Block 99. This is a kick-ass movie that I absolutely love, and Vince Vaughn being in these like serious leading roles is awesome. He's such a badass character who, like, you know that he can fuck shit up, but you also know that he is a very reasonable guy until he's pushed to not be, if that makes any sense. And basically this is a film about this good man doing wrong things for a good reason. He really has no choice, and it's just so good. This is such a dad movie. This is such a guy movie, but I highly recommend it. Brawl in Cell Block 99, absolutely one of my favorite movies that I watched this year. Then I watched Men in Black International. That was like the new one that came out a few years ago with Chris Hemsworth and Temma Thompson in it, and it's fine. I don't know. Then I watched Bright, the Will Smith movie, and Joel Edgerton is in it as well, but he's like an orc or goblin or some shit. He's like this CGI supernatural creature, and it's an allegory for racism, and I thought it was like pretty good, I guess. Then I watched Men in Black 3, my favorite Men in Black movie now. It's all about time travel and stuff, and it was fun. Then I watched Bad Boys and Bad Boys 2 and Bad Boys 3. I had never seen any of these movies, and as Hot Fuzz says, you ain't seen Bad Boys 2. It made me really want to watch it years ago, and I never had, and now I finally have, and I don't know, they're okay. They're not my favorite movies ever or whatever, but they're pretty good. Then I watched Coffee and Kareem, which is fucking so bad. Ed Holmes. That's the guy from The Hangover that I mentioned before. He's also in this, not a great movie. Then I watched a movie called Take Me, about a guy who works for this company that kidnaps people, but knowingly. They're kind of like escape rooms where people hire these people to kidnap them for the day. And it turns into a situation where he may have accidentally kidnapped the wrong person who actually isn't consenting to this. And it goes on from there, and it's actually pretty good. Then I watched Eagle vs. Shark, speaking of Taika Waititi before. This is another one of his. I believe this is his first film. And much like Boy, I think it's better than What We Do in the Shadows and Thor 4 and stuff like that. I think that this is really where Taika Waititi shines, but that's a hot take. I'm in the minority there. Then I watched Just Before I Go, which is about a suicidal guy basically learning to embrace life, and it stars Sean William Scott in this rare kind of dramedy role, and I really liked it a lot. Then I watched iBoy on Netflix, which is just a stupid movie. Don't even worry about it. Then I watched Gridiron Gang, which is a movie with The Rock in it, an early 2000s movie. It's like an inspirational sports movie, and I don't know, it was okay. Then I watched Poker King. Then I watched Pieces of a Woman, which is a really great movie. Actually, I really enjoyed that one. Although I disagreed with something in Pieces of a Woman that I'm not so sure you're supposed to... I don't know if you're supposed to think this way or not. But basically, Pieces of a Woman is about a woman at the start who's giving birth to her baby, but the baby unfortunately dies in childbirth. And basically from then on, she blames the midwife for the death of her child. And it's all about trying to sue her and get her like fired and get money off of her. And while I sympathize with the mother character in this film, and I thought that this was a great exploration of her trauma and her, whatever the word is, like her grief from the baby and everything, and I very much sympathize with that. It still enraged me that she was trying to sue the midwife as if it was her fault, when it wasn't. She was trying to do her job as well, and I'm sure she was very unhappy that the baby died as well, and that aspect to the story pissed me off and really took me out of it a bit, and I didn't love this movie quite as much as I think I could have otherwise. I don't know if you're supposed to think that or not, but I felt bad for the midwife woman who was just trying to do her job. I don't know. And they did a risky birth anyway, where they were doing it from home when they didn't have to do that, and if they were in the hospital to begin with, it probably would have survived, and there's other levels to it as well, and I don't know. It's nobody's fault. It's a bad thing that happened, and it's just a really sad movie where people are blaming people who they shouldn't be, and it's just a sad movie, and I liked it. Anyway, then I watched Vampires in the Bronx, which is basically what you think it's going to be, Vampires in the Bronx. I think that's all you need to hear. It was pretty good. Then I watched Boy A, which is a movie with Andrew Garfield in it. He's a kid who has been in prison, or juvenile prison, or whatever it's called, for a number of years and has just gone out. And basically, it's all about whether he deserves redemption from his past or not. And oh my god, I love this movie. This, like some of the others that I've said before, like Get Out and Us, is a flawless film. I urge everybody to watch Boy A. Boy, letter A. Boy A. Watch it, please. Then I watched Blind Spotting, which was a pretty good movie, but I wasn't as hot on it as a lot of other people were when it came out a few years ago. Then I watched Fanboys, which is about Star Wars fanboys trying to break into the George Lucas Star Wars ranch. They go on like a road trip to travel there and everything, because one of them is dying. It's before The Phantom Menace comes out. It's like a period piece set 10 years prior to when the film was actually made. And it's basically them trying to be the first people to ever see the film before it's out in cinemas. And I don't know. It was okay. It was very much about it was very dated. It was very much about how nerds and stuff don't fit in with society and how weird it is to like Star Wars and all this shit. It was just a bit dated in those sorts of ways. Then I watched Existence or Existenz, the David Cronenberg movie about like a real life video game thing going on, and I liked it quite a bit. Then I watched The Highwayman, which is about the cops that took down Bonnie and Clyde. It was a little bit boring, but it was kind of interesting. It was okay. Then I watched a movie called Little Fish from 2005. What I liked about this movie, you know what I liked about it? Somebody worked at a video shop, and there's a lot of scenes in like an old video shop, and I liked seeing that. Then I watched a movie called Wheelman, which is basically just like, it's kind of like an action movie version of the movie called Lock, where a guy is driving a car talking on the phone basically the whole time, but this is like an action movie, and it's got Frank Grillo in it, and it's pretty good. Then I watched a movie called Jungle Land, which is about a pair of brothers who are boxers, and it's alright. Then I watched Everything Must Go, which is a Will Ferrell dramedy from like 2010 or so that was pretty good. I've been meaning to watch it for a very long time, and it was pretty good. Then I watched Eurovision because I guess I was in a Will Ferrell mood, and I don't know, it was pretty dumb, and I'm not really into the whole... I don't even really know what Eurovision is, a singing competition, and it was okay. Then I watched QT8, the Quentin Tarantino documentary. It wasn't that informative. It was mainly kind of like the found footage phenomenon one that I was talking about before, where it's basically just like, Quentin Tarantino is brilliant. Pulp Fiction was a really influential movie, and it's just a bunch of people saying that over and over and over again. But I don't know, it was still interesting. Then I watched Capone, which is the Tom Hardy one, which is a movie that I loved so much more than anybody else in the entire world, I think. I liked liked it a lot. It's all about the tragedy of just this old man who's really grown out of, you know, being this badass that he once was, and now he's just this pathetic, dementia-riddled, farting old man. And it's really just about, like, if he's, like, even worth, like, being scared of anymore, if he's worth, like, it's really just about basically where he is at before he died, and it was interesting. Then I watched Shrek the Halls in the middle of the year, the Shrek Christmas special that goes for like half an hour or something, and it was like fairly annoying, but it was alright. Then I watched a movie called Black Bear, which was okay. Then I watched Prince of Persia Sands of Time, unfortunately. I wasn't really interested in watching this movie all that much, but I need to watch all the Jake Gyllenhaal movies. So I watched it, and it was fine, I guess. Then I watched A Time to Kill, which was good. I watched The Lincoln Lawyer, which was good. I watched Jungle, which is that movie about Daniel Radcliffe getting stranded in the jungle, based on a true story. Very good. Then I watched Jungle Cruise. So much better than I thought it was going to be. I thought this was going to just be pretty crap. Just Disney, whatever. I wasn't going into this really expecting to like it all that much, and I loved it. Then I watched Izzy Gets the Fuck Across Town. I know, weird movie you probably haven't heard of, right? Yeah, it's not that good, don't worry about it. Then I watched Bubble Boy. Again, gotta watch all the Jake Gyllenhaal movies. Bubble Boy is a movie that is so not that good and kind of weird, but they play like Blink-182 in it and stuff. There's like a pop punk soundtrack in there. I like that, and it's like early 2000s and stuff, so I kind of got nostalgic with it. Then I watched Sherlock Holmes, A Game of Shadows, the second Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes movie, because I had never seen it before, and I watched it. It was a Sherlock Holmes movie. Then I watched I Love You, Philip Morris, which is a great movie. This is a Jim Carrey and Ewan McGregor movie where basically they are partners together, like romantic partners, but they also do some crimes, and it's good. Then I watched The Mexican, which is a Brad Pitt movie that kind of feels like a Tarantino ripoff. It's like trying to do a lot of different crime comedy kind of things, and there's a few different stories going on at the same time. It definitely feels like it took from Pulp Fiction and stuff like that. But, you know, it was okay. Definitely not as good as Tarantino's movies, but still pretty good. Then I wanted to watch a similar movie, Lucky Number 11, and that wasn't nearly as good, to be honest. Then I watched Analyze This, which is a comedy. Then I watched The Faculty, which is like this sci-fi horror movie about the teachers turning into aliens or some shit. It was okay. Then I watched Joe, which was a really great movie with Nicolas Cage in it. Basically just about him looking after this kid who's like this tough kid willing to do the work and everything, and I don't know, it was good. I don't know what else to say about it. It was good. Then I watched Copland, which was a movie that I've heard was good from numerous people throughout the years, and I wasn't really interested in it because I don't really like just like crime movies all that much. But I watched it, and you know what? It was a lot more interesting than I thought it was going to be. Basically about this small town inhabited by cops. Literally a cop land. Basically, it's where all the cops within that area all live together, and it's basically about how the rules and the law don't fucking matter to these people. They can do whatever the fuck they want, and how they exploit that. And yeah, it was pretty interesting. Then I watched Snitch, which was just a movie with The Rock, and he has to get his son out of... he gets accused of crime and stuff. It's an action movie, blah, blah, blah. Then I watched Cry Macho, which is one of Clint Eastwood's very last films where he's really aging out, but he still is starring and directing in movies. And, I mean, with that being said, he's what, 110 years old? Cry Macho is better than it has any right to be, I gotta say. Then I watched The Wolfman, the Benicio del Toro one, and... it was fun. Then I watched Savages, which is a movie that I really liked quite a lot. It's got Aaron Taylor-Johnson in it, and it's like this crime film that's good. And then I watched Hit and Run, which I thought was going to be similar, but it was not nearly as good. Then I watched Hick, the Chloe Grace Moretz movie. Then I watched Mud, which is another kind of crime drama movie. These all have a very similar feel to them, all the last ones I've just mentioned. Urban Legend was up next, which is a kind of silly horror movie about real life urban legends coming to fruition. It didn't really do enough with that gimmick, if you ask me, but I still enjoyed it nonetheless. Then I watched Dharma 2002 after watching the Dharma TV show, and I gotta say that I actually thought that this was not nearly as good at all. Nowhere near close as good to the show, but I think that's just because of the time restraint. You know, just being a film, it only could do so much with the story, and so they really had to like edit that down, cut stuff out and all that sort of stuff. The show, you know, if you're gonna watch a Jeffrey Dahmer material, watch Dahmer the show. It's just infinitely better. But this still wasn't bad, and it was interesting seeing the same story in a radically different way. Then I watched The Bicentennial Man, which is that Robin Williams movie where he is like an AI robot guy, and it was alright. Then I watched Gattaca, which was better than I thought it was going to be. That is a movie about in the future where they have the ability to birth babies with the exact genetics that they want. And basically it's about a guy trying to get out of that. The guy played by Ethan Hawke, who was born just normally, but trying to surpass all the perfect people. It's very much about privilege and rich people and all that kind of stuff. Then I watched Beverly Hills Cop, which I had never seen before, and I can see how people like it, but I wasn't like huge on it. It was okay. Then I watched Vacancy 2, because I had rewatched Vacancy. I haven't got to the rewatches yet, but I watched Vacancy 2, and I believe I didn't finish this because it was fucking atrocious. Then I watched 13 Fanboy, which is a movie about an obsessed fanboy of the Friday the 13th franchise. He goes around and kills actors from the real life series, like real life actors playing themselves, and it's so much worse than it sounds. Like, I guess that might not sound that good to you. To me, that sounds so fun, but it wasn't. Then I watched You Get Me, which is about this obsessive ex-girlfriend type of story. Then I watched Carnage Park, which is about a killer sniper, basically. Then I watched Her Smell, which is a music movie. Then I watched Boys in the Hood, and that was a damn good movie. I'd never seen Boys in the Hood, and you know what? Yep, that holds up there as a classic. I totally understand why. Then I watched Cyberbully, kind of an interesting film about like cyberbullying, but not really cyberbullying. It's more about cyber blackmailing. But the thing about this movie though is, especially in the second half, and it's only like an hour 13 minutes long or something like that, but especially in the second half, it gets really like after school special on you. Like, it really tries to hammer home the point of like, cyberbullying is bad. And it's just really on the nose in that way, and it feels a little bit lame by the end. But it was still okay. I don't regret watching it, but yeah. Then I watched Never Hike Alone in the Snow, the Friday the 13th fan film on YouTube, and Never Hike Alone, the original one, Friday the 13th fan-made short film as well. I watched them in that order because Alone in the Snow is a prequel, so I'm like, I guess I'll watch that one first. And like, these aren't the greatest films ever. There's not that much of a story there. It's just a Friday the 13th fan film, you know? But that being said, they are beautiful. They are so fucking good in terms of like cinematography and stuff. For a fan-made film, they look phenomenal, and I'm just absolutely impressed by that. I think that they're pretty great. They're about as good as they could be, I would say. Then I watched a movie called The Wrong Guy, and this is basically a movie about a guy who thinks that the police are coming after him for killing his boss, which he didn't do, but they aren't. They know it's not him. They've got the killer who actually killed his boss on tape. But because there was this whole uproar that he had earlier in the day just before he died where he didn't get a promotion that he wanted, he thinks that everybody is looking at him. He thinks he's going to take the blame. So he goes on the run and basically like nobody is actually following him, but he thinks that everybody is like on the lookout for him, and it's just hilarious. It very much reminds me of a Simpsons episode. The comedy in this movie, it's so stupid and I love it. It's also so clever though. Like, it's both. I don't know. Then I watched a movie called Colobos, and I didn't finish it. This is like a Big Brother kind of premise where it's like a reality show in a house being shot, but then it turns into a horror movie, and it was just kind of dumb. Then I watched a movie called The Ranger, which is a movie about this park ranger who takes his job a little too seriously, so he'll kill you if you litter or something like that. And I liked it. Then I watched the short film that originally inspired the feature length called Cargo, the film with Martin Freeman in it. And this was nowhere near as good as the feature length film, just because it's only 7 minutes long. It can't really do much with its story, but I can see how it was good enough to inspire the feature-length film. It has promise in it, but it's not quite that great just because of its short runtime. The feature-length, though, phenomenal. That's another perfect film. Then I watched Slice, which is a horror comedy about a pizza shop, basically, and it's not that good. It's pretty bad. Then I watched The Strange Thing About the Johnsons, Ari Aster's short film before he made Hereditary. A very fucked up, disturbing film about a son, basically, abusing his father in a way that you don't often see in media. And with that being said, it's a very ballsy film, it's a very fucked up film, and it's one that's going to make you feel dirty. You may regret watching this movie if you ever watch it, but it's definitely interesting, and I definitely appreciate that it's at least trying to depict something that you don't often see, like in film at all. Ari Aster is definitely somebody who was like trying to get attention with this film though, and he succeeded. Then I watched a movie called Blood Punch, which is like a Groundhog Day type of horror comedy movie, but it was actually kind of bad. Then I watched Knock Around Guys, which is a movie with Vin Diesel and I don't know, a bunch of other people. It's like this ensemble cast and it's like a crime comedy type of thing, but it was. Then I watched Bedazzled, the Brendan Fraser movie. I'd never seen it before. Basically, this is a movie where he makes wishes with the devil, and each wish though, like he goes to this alternate universe whenever the wishes are granted, but they all go wrong. Be careful what you wish for and all that kind of stuff. That's basically what this movie is. It's okay. Then I watched The Lost Daughter, which was also okay. Then I watched Blast from the Past, which I know, I went from Bedazzled, then The Lost Daughter, then Blast from the Past, but that's how it happened. I don't know. This is another Brendan Fraser movie, and this one was really good. This is about a guy who was grown up in an underground bunker all his life. And so he has like 60s or 1950s or whatever sentimentality, and like because he's just been raised by his parents, that's how he thinks as like a 1950s kid. But basically he's getting sent now that he's a bit older up to the real world, like upper level onto the streets, and he's going into the 90s now because that's when this movie was made, 1999, and it's basically just all about how he doesn't fit in and can't keep up and all that kind of stuff, and I liked it. Then I watched Evolution, which is that Ghostbusters ripoff about aliens, and it was exactly what it sounds like. Then I watched a movie called Blow the Man Down, and it blew me down to sleep. That's such a stupid thing to say. I didn't like this one that much. Then I watched One Way to Denmark, which was a pretty great movie, to be honest. Like, you know, it's like a 3.5 type of film, but like a really solid good one. You know what I mean? Then I watched Primer, the movie that I've heard on and on and on and on about for years and years being the most complicated and best, most accurate time travel film to ever exist, because it apparently all checks out the maths and all that kind of stuff, the logic to it. Apparently it's really clever. I didn't like it at all. It was very techno babble. They were all just saying a bunch of random shit to each other that I didn't really understand. At the start it's all about business babble. They're just going on about how they're trying to keep their business afloat, and then it turns into time travel babble where they're like, the influx accelerators gotta... That's not actually what they say. It's better than that. I'm just saying fucking buzzwords. But basically, Primer is a movie that I'm sure checks out. I'm sure is very clever. I'm sure is very well done. But it's shot pretty shittily. It looks bad. And I don't get what was going on, so I don't really care. Then I watched Cop Out, which is a Kevin Smith movie, because I keep going back to trying to watch Kevin Smith movies, much like I do Wes Anderson movies, even though I dislike both of them. Cop Out was fine. Then I watched Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? An Coen Brothers film about these criminals who basically escape, and it's like this road trip kind of thing, except they're not driving, they're like just walking across the country, and it's like this quirky comedy that's fine. Then I watched True Grit, which was pretty good. Then I watched Pixie, which was pretty good. Then I watched Villains. Villains I absolutely love. It stars Bill Skarsgård as just a normal guy for once, not a Pennywise guy, and basically it's about them breaking into a house that happens to be the very wrong house when they make a shocking discovery down in the basement that they cannot now just leave. They find somebody down there, basically, shackled down there to a pipe. And basically it's about what the hell they do from there. And yeah, it's very interesting. And it's funny as well. Then I watched Two Guns, the Mark Wahlberg and Denzel Washington action comedy kind of movie that was actually a lot better than I thought it was going to be. Then I watched Three Kings, which was actually quite a bit better than I thought it was going to be. That's a David O. Russell movie that was good. It's like a war movie. Then I watched Clerks 2, because again, I keep fucking going back to him, Kevin Smith. I don't like your movies, because Clerks 2 was shit. Then I watched Quiz Show, which is about a guy who basically cheats a quiz show like Who Wants to Be a Millionaire or whatever. And basically it's about the whole scandal of that. It's not a true story though, so you're not like learning anything important or anything. But it's still interesting to watch. Then I watched The Italian Job, because I had a heist film day today. I watched The Italian Job, I watched Oceans 12 and 13. I'd never seen any of them, and they were all pretty okay. Then I watched Anger Management. And now I'm up to December of the older movies that I watched for the first time. We're getting to the end. Then I watched Better Watch Out, which is one of my favorite Christmas horror movies now that went in a completely different direction than I was expecting it to. Go into this blind if you're going to watch it, because honestly, It's phenomenal. Then I watched Laura Hasn't Slept, which is the short film that inspired the feature-length Smile this year. And yeah, I can definitely see why they made a feature-length film out of this thing. It's impressive as hell. It's pretty damn scary, except for the very last moment where there's like a jump scare, and it's like, I get that they had to do that. That's kind of what this thing is. And it got me, because jump scares get me. But like, it felt a bit silly compared to the rest of it. But that kind of translates to Smile, because there's some silly moments in there in what is otherwise a fantastic and mature film, if you ask me. Yeah, Laura Hasn't Slept is pretty fantastic. Then I watched Silent Night, another Christmas horror movie about a family who is basically, I'm not going to say, it's a spoiler. Actually, I will just say that this is a very nihilistic film, very depressing, not exactly a holly jolly Christmas film, but I love it. Then I watched Melancholia, which has almost the exact same plot as Silent Night, but it's far inferior, if you ask me. Then I watched If Anything Happens, I Love You, a short film about a school shooting on Netflix. And yeah, this really packs a punch in like 12 minutes. I liked it a lot. Then I watched a bunch of shorts, and this was kind of where I cheated a little bit, if I'm being honest, where I was really trying to get to the crossing the 500 movies watched mark of the year. So I watched a bunch of shorts in one day. So I'm just going to say the titles, but not actually talk about them because there's too many. So I watched No More Wings. I watched Second Best. I watched The Invention. I watched Utopia, Shiny, Last Meal, OI, Original Idea. This was probably the best one I watched, where somebody has an original idea, and if anybody hears that original idea, it makes their head explode, because it's so original that humans cannot comprehend it. I kind of liked it. Then I watched a short called Martha, one called Welcome to Iron Knob, one called Little Grey Bubbles, one called Call Connect. That's a fantastic one too. Then one called Infinite, one called Naysayer, and one called Sometimes I Think About Dying. Yeah, I really wanted to cross that 500 mark, sorry. Then I watched Constantine. I'd never seen it before. I watched Fool's Gold, which is that movie with Matthew McConaughey, and he's like a treasure hunter. Then I watched The Equalizer 1 and 2. They are great. I really like the Equalizer movies quite a bit. They're kind of basic. They're just action movies. They're kind of like John Wick clones, but not as good, but they're still pretty good. Then I watched Great White, which is a pretty bad shark horror movie. Then I watched SWAT. Then I watched Coming to America for the first time. Then I watched a movie called Timeline with Paul Walker in it. It's about going back in time to like medieval times, and it was alright. Then I watched Naked Singularity, which was not that great, to be honest, kind of a boring movie. Then I watched Reign Over Me, which is that Adam Sandler movie, and basically I didn't know what this movie was about. It's about Adam Sandler whose family had died in 9/11, and it's like really dark. He can't move on from it. And like, you just feel so bad for him. You want to give him a hug, but it's like this, I don't know. It's a pretty good movie though. Then I watched a movie called Pressure Point, which has Michael Shannon in it, and it's basically about a rowboat team. He's the coach, and it was actually really bad. Then I watched The Grinch, the 2018 animated movie, basically the fake Grinch, not the official good Grinch. Nah, this movie's cute enough, but it's just like, I don't know. It's Illumination. If Pixar made it, I'd probably love it, but Illumination, you know, they can only go so far, it seems. Then I watched Thank You for Smoking. Then I watched Punisher Warzone, which is fucking so silly and cool. Then I watched Red Notice from last year. I watched I Trapped the Devil, and I didn't finish this one, if I'm being honest. This is about it's another Christmas horror movie about a guy who supposedly has trapped like a demon in his house, and it's all about whether he's crazy or not. It was kind of boring, to be honest. Then I watched Fat Man, which is basically the rip-off of Violent Night, except that it came out first, so Violent Night, if anything, is the rip-off of Fat Man. But you know what? Violent Night is so much better than Fat Man. Very similar films, but Violent Night is better. Then I watched Home Sweet Home Alone, which I liked quite a bit more than apparently everybody else does, because this has like a fucking, I don't know, this has like a 3 on IMDb or something, a 3 out of 10 or something. And honestly, I think that's insane. I thought this movie was like, it deserves at least like a 5 or 6 on IMDb, if you ask me. I thought it was pretty good. And then the last older movie that I watched that I hadn't seen of this year is The Web. And I don't know if this counts. This is a Nathan Fielder short from his show called Nathan For You. It's a 4-minute short that he made just to legally cover his ass for something, where he was trying to help a business in Hollywood sell souvenirs to random people by getting them to think that Johnny Depp was there filming a film, and basically, to legally cover his ass, because this was technically fraud, he had to make a film and insert it into a like awards competition thing. And basically, because nobody would take his short film because it was complete shit, he had to make his own like short film competition thing. So he did that, and he made it so that his would definitely win because it was better than the other one, which the only other competing short film was just this 3-minute video of a guy farting. Me Farting on Command, it's called. And so basically he entered these two into his own made-up short film competition, made it so that his would win so that he could officially say, I have an award-winning film here. And that's what The Web is. And I gave it 5 out of 5 on Letterboxd because it's incredible. And it counts as a film, shut up. Okay, now I'm going to go through rewatches, but I'm going to go through them kind of quick. So I watched Scream 4, which I think is as good as every other Scream movie. Then I watched The Guilty, which is that Jake Gyllenhaal movie about a emergency response call person. Then I watched The Amazing Spider-Man. I love The Amazing Spider-Man films. I watched The Amazing Spider-Man 2 as well. I think they are so underrated. Then I watched Wild Tales, which is honestly one of the best films ever made. Then I rewatched Last Night in Soho, one of Edgar Wright's best films. Then I watched Land of Mine, another perfect, flawless film. Then I watched Haunters, Art of the Scare, a documentary about scary haunted houses in America. Not real ones, those fake ones that you go through at like Halloween Horror Nights and stuff like that. Then I rewatched The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Beginning. Then I rewatched What If, Daniel Radcliffe rom-com. Then I rewatched Fresh, the movie that came out this year. Then I rewatched Turning Red, the movie that came out this year. I love Turning Red. Then I rewatched Soul, another Pixar movie. I rewatched 21-22 Jump Street, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, Thor Ragnarok, which I like but don't love. I rewatched Batman Begins. I was planning on watching the Nolan trilogy before the Batman came out, but then I failed. I rewatched Spiral. I rewatched the first Shrek and the second Shrek and the third and fourth. I rewatched A Quiet Place 2. I rewatched Deadpool, Guardians of the Galaxy 1 and 2. I rewatched Ambulance that came out this year. I also rewatched Rogue, a killer crocodile movie. I rewatched The Lodge, one of my absolute favorite horror movies of all time. I rewatched The Spectacular Now and Chef. I rewatched Monsters Inc., which is always a classic. I rewatched Orphan. I rewatched the first Orphan. I watched it twice this year. Both were a rewatch. I rewatched The Hitcher. I also rewatched Roadkill, or in other countries it's called Joyride. I also rewatched All Hallows Eve in preparation for Terrifier 2. And I also rewatched Terrifier. I also rewatched Vacancy. And as I alluded to, I watched for the first time Vacancy 2 later on, which was terrible. I rewatched Boiling Point, which I only watched for the first time this year. I rewatched Escape Room and Escape Room 2, as well as Paranormal Activity and number 2 of that. And I didn't go on. I was planning on watching the whole franchise, but I fucking hate the Paranormal Activity movies. I'm sorry, I just do. And I didn't go on from 2. I'm like, these are boring. Why watch 3? Then I rewatched Fall. Again, I only watched that for the first time this year. I rewatched Elf, The Night Before, Office Christmas Party, Love Actually, and Home Alone 3, all for Christmas. But I learned that Home Alone 3 is not a Christmas movie, apparently. It's the only one that doesn't take place on Christmas. I was horrified. Okay, now quickly, let's just get through the TV shows as well. First up, I watched The Girl Before, which is a short little show with like 6 episodes or something that you'll probably never watch. Then I watched Euphoria, the new season of that, or maybe I watched the first season this year as well. Great show. That's a really good show. Then I watched The Woman in the House Across the Street from the Girl in the Window, which was pretty great. Then I watched the Australians season of Survivor that came out this year. Then I watched Fresh Off the Boat, just the first season. I like that show quite a bit, but I haven't watched more of it. Actually, I like half that show. I like the mum and the dad characters, but I don't care for the kids. And so I feel like half the show is good, half the show I'm like, I don't care. Then I watched How I Met Your Father, not Mother, Father, and that's a cute show that I like. It's nowhere near as good as How I Met Your Mother, but it's good. Then I watched Anatomy of a Scandal, which I urge everyone to watch. I thought this was a pretty fantastic show. Then I watched Is It Cake? Yeah, regrettably I watched Is It Cake? All of it. Then I watched Better Call Saul season 6, which, you know, Better Call Saul is a show that I feel complicated about because Breaking Bad is my favorite show of all time. Better Call Saul is nowhere close to that for me, but it's still very good, undeniably. Then I watched Heartstopper, which was apparently kind of a big show for at least the book community, because my wife was super into this show and a lot of other people that she knew was, but I'd never heard of it otherwise. But I liked it a lot. Then I watched a documentary show called Wild Babies, which was about cute little wild babies, but every single episode, one of the wild babies would just leave the mum and go off somewhere and get lost, and they'd be like, oh no, we're never gonna find the fucking baby ever again, like the voiceover, not the animal. And I'm like, oh fuck, why'd they leave? And then eventually they find them again, and it's usually a happy, optimistic ending for these animals in this show. Then I rewatched the entirety of the IT Crowd with my parents, because that is also one of my absolute favorite shows of all time. Definitely the funniest show I've ever seen. Then I watched the entire Bullshit game show that was on Netflix, and I liked that quite a bit. I was sad when that was over. Then I watched Slasher season 2 and 3, but I only watched some of them, if I'm being honest. I didn't finish either season. In fact, that's an anthology show, so that's why I watched some of 2 and some of 3. It's not like I skipped essential things I needed to know. Just by the way. Then I watched Love on the Spectrum, the US version and the Australian version, and man, I really like that show. Then I watched The Hidden Lives of Pets, which was okay. It was kind of a short thing that showed fascinating pets. I think the title is a bit misleading, because it's like, look at what it's kind of like The Secret Life of Pets, look at what they do when we're not around. But it was actually more like scientific and showing like more pets that were doing like astronomically weird shit. There was a dog that skydived and stuff. Anyway, then I watched Stranger Things, season 1 to 3. I still haven't seen season 4 yet. Then I watched Lovesick, which was a rewatch. I really like that show. Then I watched Miss Marvel, which I think I liked more than the majority of people. Then I watched a reality show called Hunted, this was set in Melbourne, where people were set to run away from like these like official trained, what are they called? Like FBI people or whatever. And so basically it's just about seeing if they can outrun the cops, basically. They have to get away from the authorities. It's all like legal, no crime has been done. It's just a game show, but yeah, it's interesting. But I don't really believe a lot of the show though, because they're walking around like all secretive, but you see that there's like full camera crews following the people. And it's like, that kind of gives you away, doesn't it? Then I watched She-Hulk, but I did not finish it because I actually quite disliked She-Hulk. It tried to be funny and it wasn't, and I didn't like it very much at all. I felt embarrassed watching it. Then I watched The Simpsons season 24 and 25, maybe 26. I lost track. I also watched every Treehouse of Horror episode, which you might have seen because I did a video ranking every single segment. Then I watched The Rehearsal, Nathan Fielder's The Rehearsal. Then I watched The Amazing Race, the Australian season that came out this year. Glow Up season 4, the Dharma TV show, which is great. I watched The Watcher, but I didn't finish it because I didn't like it very much. I watched The Mole season 1 on Netflix, a reality show about where one of the contestants is a mole trying to sabotage the group. And man, I hope more seasons of that show comes out. I really liked it. Then I watched the last season of Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Oh, that's sad. I like Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Then I watched the first season and only season, because it got cancelled, of Blockbuster, which I liked okay. It was a cute kind of half-watch kind of show. Then I watched Scrubs season 1 to 5, I think, because I'm still watching that at the moment. And yeah, haven't finished it yet. Then I watched a show called The Flat Share, which I really recommend. I enjoyed it quite a lot. It's about two people who get into an agreement to share their apartment, but one only stays there during the day and one only stays there during the night because they work, well, the other one works night shift, the other one works during the day, and they kind of leave each other notes in the apartment and learn a bit about each other. And it's like a rom-com, and I liked it a lot. Then I watched another one called This Is Going to Hurt, about a doctor, and it's basically just all about how, I don't know how to describe it actually. It's a British kind of comedy, mostly drama show about a doctor, and it's fantastic. One of the best shows I watched this year. I won't say more. Then I watched The White Lotus season 2, which was okay, but I didn't think it was anywhere near as good as the first season. It was good, but unnecessary. Then I watched Wednesday, the Addams Family TV show thing, but I didn't finish it. I don't really like it that much. Sorry. And now, the last show is Nathan For You, which I'm still currently watching, which is absolutely brilliant. One of the best, funniest fucking shows I've ever seen in my life. I can't wait to watch the rest of it, to be honest. It's so good. And lastly, if you want me to quickly go through video games I played Saints Row 2, Hitman 3, Forza 5, Arkham Asylum, Guardians of the Galaxy, Fallout 4, Saints Row, the reboot, which, disappointed me, Call of Duty Vanguard, The Quarry, and Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2, which my wife got me for Christmas, and I'm currently playing that now. And love it! And that is everything That's all. Finally, we're done. My throat hurts. I'm so sick of recording. Woo! If you got through this, that's unbelievable. I thank you. If you sincerely so much, if you watched all of this, thank you so much. I get it's just me talking for hours. But yeah, hopefully somebody out there liked it. And yeah, that is 2022 covered. Every single film and TV show and whatnot that I watched of the year. Cool. And that's about all that I have to say. So please, before you go, do the things, which are like, comment, share, subscribe, all that shit. And I'm finally outie. I'm so sick of recording. Goodbye.